already lit.
And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which stands for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Peace to everyone today. I hope this Sabbath finds you in excellent health, as good as can be, being wherever we are in this world today, in this time of trouble that's never been since it's been a nation. And as Yah says in Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Zion's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Again, it says you're cold, but when you see later on in this chapter 30 Jeremiah, you'll see it's talking about Zion. You know, pay particular attention, read the chapter, pay particular attention to verse 17. Another one of the places where the sins of Esau changed, and you know, the word that was there, usually it's either Jerusalem or the house of David or Zion, and they put Yaakov there for some more confusion. Many of you today have been there for the whole session, so you heard it. Many of you, or no, some of you probably picked up, I made a mistake back when I said Yeshaya 59 verse 12. I meant 59 verse 10. We're all in desolate places like dead men. And so now you know, many of us, more of us, are awakening to the fact that we are the descendants of Israel. And, you know, who've been walking around dead from the chest up, right? Eyes open but couldn't see, ears made heavy, couldn't hear, and a heart made fat and couldn't understand. And so we awaken out of the dust of the earth to the fact that we Israel. And then we got to make a decision. Are we going to serve Yah with all our heart and soul, Deuteronomy 30 verse 2 or not? So I know, you know, some of you have questions, if not many of you, what have you. So put them up, and you know, hopefully Yah will deal with them, and we can all come away with an illuminated understanding. You know, the true illumination. I just basically read that. Yada was asking me, she saw earlier when person put up, so asked the question, is Michael the angel, is he here now? Yeah, he's here, he's been here. Okay, he's standing because it's a time of trouble. And he's standing for the children of Israel. And all that, as it says, you know, are awakened and turned to Yah with all our heart and soul. He's even, I have no doubt, shielding and protecting, you know, many who are in pursuit, still confused, and who will, you know, make the right decision at some point. Like it says there in that, where I just left Daniel chapter 12, right? I'll read it. What does it say? And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, right? Some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. And again, that verse before, and it shall, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which stands for the children of thy people. You know, he's an angel, right? One of the chief angels, as it says in Daniel chapter 10, right? And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. You know, that's Yah's book, right? Okay, so questions? We're open to questions. Questions or statements or what have you. Okay, Malachi, why do I say marriage is a curse? And I figured somebody was going to ask me that the way it sounded. Marriage is a curse, again, under the ways of the heathen. If you standing up before the double cross, you understand, because you're not going to see that anywhere in the book where you know, there was any particular ceremony about marriage, because again, unions are consecrated when two people come together, come into that one understanding that they want to, you know, be for one another, right? And when they consummate, you know, when they have intercourse, then they are married. That's why, again, and I've spoken of in the past, when you read that Genesis, you know, it might be a little hard to pick up on initially, but when you read that Genesis and when Laban, as some people pronounce it, right? Jacob's uncle, his mother, Rebecca's brother, pulled the trick on him, okay? Because Laban, again, he was subtle and deceitful, a snake, and he knew and understood, as I've spoken of before, that Yah had blessed him because he had increased wealth with Jacob taking care of his herds. And he understood that that was because Yah was with Jacob, because Jacob was with Yah. And so he was afraid of Jacob, you know, Jacob leaving after the initial 7 years that he worked for Rachel, right, the youngest daughter of Laban. And so he knew that Leah loved Jacob, so he sent Leah in to become, you know, to consummate a union with Jacob when it should have been Rachel. That's who Jacob worked for those 7 years. And Leah, being in love with Jacob, she went, you know, she became part of that, no telling what Laban told her. You follow what I'm saying? And then when, you know, he threw the big feast for Jacob and Rachel, he sent Leah in later on, more likely than not, when Jacob was, you know, slightly inebriated. I'm not saying he was drunk, but, you know, he was feasting, so, you know, he was drinking some wine. He was probably feeling real good, not having any inkling that his uncle was going to deceive him this way. And when he went in to his dwelling, and Leah was there with her veil on, you know, he couldn't see her face. And then when he had intercourse with her, that veil came off. He had ejaculated in her. That veil came off, and he was highly upset. That's why initially he hated Leah, but as time went by, he you know, became where he cared for Leah very much and loved her. Okay, but again, I look at caring meaning more than love. That's the highest, to me, the highest bar on the ladder is caring for someone. But the point being is, he went to his uncle and said, you know, you have deceived me, right? Because he knew the law of Yah, and he knew when he ejaculated into Leah, now that union was consummated. He could not change that. Okay? But when I said marriage is a curse, I'm talking about the ways and the customs of the heathen. Okay? Any kind of way that these religions so deal with marriage, that's the customs of the heathen. That's what I meant by curse in that regard. Those who are under these curses or this curse per se, those are married in the Western world in Christianity under the ways of the Christian religion or any other religion, as far as that's concerned. Okay, I'm listening. Okay, this is Healing in His Wings. There's another chat room I occasionally listen to. They teach that there is no Messiah. And am I correct in what they are saying according to the Book of Remembrance? If this is true, that deception in the churches is really messed up. Can you explain this a little by Scripture? Well, again, like I just said, all churches are predicated as mosques, temples, and synagogues predicated on religions, every one of them. That's why I don't go into any. I was discussing this with a person earlier in the week. These are the houses, as we call them, houses of idol worship. Okay? Whether they're predicated again on Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, these are houses of idol worship. Now, in regards to that there is no Messiah, that's totally incorrect. As I've stated in the past, Messiah comes from the Hebraic term, as we know, Mashiach. Okay? And again, everybody who is, and I, in today's session earlier, when I read the top of Yeshaya chapter 44, right? When Yah said he was going to pour his spirit on the offspring of the children of Israel. And again, like I said, those of us who start to search for him, that's when he pours his spirit on those of us who search for him. As we've said in the past, it's 5 ways we see that one can be looking for Yah and not really know it. Okay, now kind of hold the questions for a minute, okay? And it's 5 ways that one can be searching for Yah and not know it. You can be looking for peace with all your heart. You're looking for Yah. You can be looking for truth with all your heart. You're looking for Yah. You can be looking for righteousness, equity with all your heart. You're looking for Yah. You can be looking for salvation from up under and out of this demonic, oppressive system that overspreads the earth. You're looking for Yah because those 4 things rest with Yah. Quite naturally, you can be looking for the true and living Creator, being possibly confused with all of these different religions in the world, right? And different modes of worship. People worshiping the zodiac and host of heaven, right? And if you're confused and you're looking to, for who is the true Creator, then you're looking for Yah. And again, if you're looking for those first 4 things, peace, truth, righteousness, salvation, you don't necessarily know you're looking for Yah. And that's again why in Yeshaya chapter 65 at the top, Yah says that I am sought of them that sought me not, I am found of them that asked not for me. Okay? Because you don't know you're looking for Yah of hosts. You might not even realize that you're looking for God, quote unquote, right? That term most commonly used in the Western world. But you are. Okay? So, again, if you're looking for the Most High with all your heart in some shape, form, or fashion, he's going to pour his spirit on you. And when he pours his spirit on you, you are anointed. And that's all Mashiach means, to be anointed. Okay? That's all Messiah means, to be anointed. Doesn't mean the anointed 1, the anointed 2, or the anointed 3. It just means anointed. Okay? And any of us, all of us who have awakened to the fact that we are Israel are anointed in that sense. Now, as I've spoken of in the past, Yah pours his spirit on us, and he pours his spirit on us to awaken us. And if we turn to him with all our heart and soul, again, Deuteronomy 30 verse 2, and submit and obey, then he starts to refine us. He starts to prepare each and every one of us for some function in his kingdom. Okay? If we sustain that commitment and submission, he's preparing each and every one of us for some function in his kingdom. Some of us have a specific function that we do. Some of us have a function that many people will do, like for instance, the Levites, okay, the males, right, who will be the priest, all who come to Yah, and many of them will have the same function. You understand what I'm saying? The high priest has a particular function that only he can do. Okay, the one who Yah is preparing for that task right now, for that duty, should I say. The seed of David that he raises up out of however many seeds of David that has descended from David himself to this day, Yah said he would raise up one of them to perform a specific function. Okay, and again, that seed is performing that function as we speak. That's why I do what I do. That's why Yah righteousness is in existence. Okay, I hope I explained it. If you didn't quite get it, or come back again and I'll talk on it some more. Okay, Zachariah Ben Yisrael, please explain Yeshaya 4:1-2 to women in the room. Well, again, that Yeshaya chapter 4, the key to that, when 7 women are going to grab hold to one man and say, we will supply our own food, our own victuals, just let us be called by thy name. The key to that is, what does it say there in that chapter 4? Doesn't it say, when the branch of Yah is glorious and beautiful? To me, that's the key there. Okay? Is the branch of Yah glorious and beautiful right now? It is to some who understand what the branch of Yah is, but that still is not right now. Okay? As I've said in the past, I'm sure, I just can't remember when, I know I've spoken on it, the branch of Yah will be glorious and beautiful right before it leaves out of captivity, out of the daughter of Babylon, out of the midst of her, Yeshaya chapter 52, right? It'll be glorious and beautiful then, when these, like it says in 49 Yeshaya and chapter 60 Yeshaya, when these Gentiles, and some are coming now, but I don't look at it as still, that's not, the time is still not right now where it's glorious and beautiful. Like I said, it is to some, but still the kings have not come to it yet. I have no doubt they're in consideration mode and they're monitoring, okay, as the Illuminati Edomites are. That's why, again, why we do these sessions the way we've started to do them, because if you notice today, those of you who basically were listening in this whole session, you didn't hear basically any interference, okay? And that's because the way we're doing them now, and hopefully there won't be any, as it had been in I noticed we came in about 20 minutes before this new recording started today at 11 o'clock Eastern time, and we noticed what Yedida had in the room. She was playing thing we did in the past, matter of fact, January of this year. And those of you who heard it, when I talked about certain things, you started hearing interference, where it was cutting out and being interfered with. And again, that's the elite listening, to whatever degree elite. It could be Edward Snowden, who actually, when I say Edward Snowden, I don't mean him exactly, but those who are like him, who are actually been assigned to monitor, okay, and to when they hear certain terms like Bertrand Russell, and like I said earlier, in that piece that played right before this session began, the banking system, talked about Napoleon, what happened back there in 1815 with the Rothschilds and the Illuminated Edomite, going all the way back to 1789 with the Great French Revolution. When I've talked about things of that nature, Okay, it used to be a lot of interference, because they don't want you to hear that. Okay, and various other things. That's why in what Yedida played right before this session began today, you listen real close. I said, if you go back and you listen to these things that we've done on Pal Talk, starting with January of 2012, and you listen, generally I can get out the initial what I'm getting ready to say. As soon as they hear it, you'll hear them come in and start messing with it. And that's like, an indicator of what they don't want you to hear. Okay? So that's why we do these sessions the way we do them now. We record them, and then we do the live Q&A. Hopefully, that at least up to now, it's been pretty clear without any interference. Hopefully, like I said, it'll stay that way. Y'all's will. But again, even when you look at it from the other angle of them attacking what we've been doing before we started doing it this new way, it indicates what? Isn't it indicative that they're listening and that they don't want you to hear what is coming forth out of Yah righteousness? Again, as I've said in the past, the only thing the Illuminati Edomite fears is Yah. That's why he's doing all that he's doing. Like, I don't know, I think I've said this in the past about this Edomite that called here. He's only called here twice. Each time it was after we put forth the prophecy about what was going to happen to the Edomites in the land before 2016, right? How they would be run out and judged. And then we went to the different places where Yah said he was going to bring judgment on them. We first put that prophecy out in November of 2007. Mark Sims, who we did the first, that show with, Mark put that show up on the internet shortly thereafter. And the show hadn't aired here in Chicago. It didn't air until December 25th of 2007. Okay? But the Edomite, this Edomite that lives somewhere on the outside of Chicago north, where many of the Edomites live, some poor, some many of them wealthy, and some very, very rich and powerful. Okay? Now, when he called here, his area code, again, indicated to us that he was somewhere up that way. And he, called here a little after midnight. I didn't answer the phone because I was in the bed. He left a message. He called back about 5 o'clock that same morning. That's when he was talking, and I got up and answered the phone. Okay? Because I kind of was awake, but not up. And I answered the phone, and he was ranting and raving. I couldn't even have a civil conversation with him. So I told him, after about 12 minutes, if it was that long, 10, 11 minutes, I said, hey, I see we can't have a decent conversation, so I'm gone. So I hung up. He called back almost 3 years to the day when we put that prophecy forward again in the Q&A we did with Mark in 2010, in November of 2010, and Mark put it up on the internet. That show didn't air until in December as well, but he called before it aired, just like he did before, the same way. This time I didn't answer the phone, again, a little after 12, and I didn't answer the phone at about 5 o'clock in the morning when he called. I just let him leave a message. I figured it might be him when it happened like that. I ended up talking to him on the Sabbath because this was a Friday morning, and I ended up talking to him, and I've mentioned this before, I'm pretty sure, when the Sabbath began. And I called him back because he called right before the Sabbath began that day, and I answered the phone, and he was like, inferring that I was hiding from him, kind of like. And I'm like, hey, my man, I got your message. I said, I'm going to call you back when the Sabbath starts. I said, because we getting ready for the Sabbath. He said, oh, okay. So I told Yada when that happened, I said, that's that same guy that called here 3 years ago. And she said, how you know? I said, that's the same guy. It's the same format. But he was more, he was intelligible and somewhat sedate and calm and not all boisterous and, demonstrative, right? So when the Sabbath began, and it was about an hour and a half, about 2 hours into the Sabbath, I called him back. And Yada had asked, she said, can I listen? I said, sure, pick the phone up when I tell you to. So when the phone started ringing, I told her to pick it up. So she picked it up, so she was listening. And as soon as he answered the phone, okay, he went off. I mean, he told me that he was born in the Caucasus Mountains. Told me he was Illuminati. Told me that he said, don't you know we will destroy the whole earth before we allow a black man to sit on it. Now that's his words, quote unquote. Okay, he challenged me. He started out, so you a prophet, and I said to him, I don't know if he heard me. He was ranting and raving. So I said to him, I said, you never heard me say that. He was still ranting and raving, and he challenged me. He says, you want to meet? We can meet. Okay, I mean, he was highly upset. And I stayed on the phone with him a little bit longer this time, just so that Yada could hear it, and because of what he was saying. But like I said, he said to me that they would destroy the whole earth before they would allow a black man to sit on it. All right, so he told me he was Illuminati. He told me he comes out of the Caucasus Mountains. Okay, now that's Esau's mind. Okay, that's his mind. This is why you got the chemtrails being sprayed. This is why you got GMOs. So just like I said in this last session, GMOs is uncontrollable. Okay? Y'all's allowed the illuminated Edomite to come out with something that he can't even control. You can't control GMOs, because when you set up a field of GMO, when the pollen flies from those crops, it'll flip any field that those pollen from the GMO field comes in contact with. It'll flip it and make it GMO. So that's horrible. Okay? That's like I'm pretty sure I said some months back. It's like that movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Okay? If you've ever seen that movie, right? And I'm going back to the original one with what's his name, McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy. That came out back in the 50s. That's the one I watched when I was little, and I've watched since I became an adult. These two later versions, I really haven't really watched those. Okay, but I'm sure they're putting forth the same, the same mindset, and that is, these seeds overwhelm, wherever they latch onto, they're going to take control, and that's these GMOs. It's uncontrollable. But the thing about the GMOs, if you listen to the last session, and all of you who just did, and you can go back to possibly pull up on RT Russia Today, what I talked about earlier in the session happened. That came on Monday. That's when, because I mentioned it in this session, because that was when we did this session on the 2nd of this month, which was Monday. And that's that morning when they had a guy, he kept on running it all day, and he was talking about these GMOs. It was like a 30-minute expose on GMOs. And these GMOs are highly destructive, okay? Highly destructive. And Esau has unleashed this. But again, when you factor that in and everything else that we talked about today, we've talked about in the past, that's why we read the newspaper articles, and we relate it to the book, and the book to them, the prophecies of what Yah said was going to happen, and the time of trouble there's never been since there's been a nation. We're in that time. And yes, Michael, the one of the chief angels, he's standing for the children of Israel, all that turn to him. And like I just said a minute ago, even to some that haven't turned to Yah yet, possibly with all their heart and soul, but they will. Okay. Hope I didn't leave out anything. If I did, come back again. What's next? Oh, and let me just say this again. I think it was healing in his wings. Everybody, again, is anointed that's been raised up so far and who will be of the children of Israel. We're all messiahs. But again, Yah's raising us up, and you can go to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 9, when he's talking about the seed of David that he would raise up today. Didn't he say, whom I shall raise up unto thee? So again, nobody has anything to say about it. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that in this last session, right? Just like when he raised up Moses. Moses tried to beg out of it, but when Yah raises you up to do something, you got to do it. And if you don't do it, then you'll be like Saul and many others whom he raised up who didn't submit and obey his will, and you see what happened to them. You see their latter end, right? Simple as that. Yah raises up everybody and prepares them for a certain duty, a certain job, if you will, a certain obligation in his kingdom. Okay? Some have similar or like duties, like agriculturalists, Levites, priests. Some might be barbers, some might be shoemakers, some might be vineyard keepers, some might be fishermen, okay? Just like he raises up the seed of Zadok, who will be the high priest, right? He has a certain duty. He raises up the seed of David that is to be governor. He has certain duties. It's simple as that, okay? But they're all anointed. Okay, what's next? Okay, peace, Yahuda. What is the arm of Yah, the Jerusalem movement made up of? Last I understood, David's descendants and the descendants of Levi. Are there any others? Like I just said, the seed of Zadok. Okay, you got the seed of Zadok, because the arm of Yah goes back intact. Okay, with Yah on the head of it, right? You see that in Yeshaya chapter 52. Yah's going to be on the front of it. That's again why the name is, as he said, from our mother, right? Yeshaya chapter 50 in the book of Jeremiah, right? Chapter 23, 5th and 6th verse, Yah righteousness. Yah's on the head of it. You can't say the movement without saying Yah first, because he's on the head of it. And as he says in 52 Yeshaya, his glory shall be at its rearward. Okay? And that's the arm of Yah, the Jerusalem movement. You see in the 51st and the 52nd chapter is referred to as the arm, of Yah, right? It's also in the 48th chapter. I mentioned that in this last session, right? Was that verse 12? When Yah said his arm should be on the Chaldeans, or in other words, the daughter of Babylon, United States of America. Isn't that where we are? And if you just deal with this last session that we did. Who we, we're talking about the illuminated Edomite. We're talking about us, right? But we're talking about the illuminated Edomite, right? And it's the illuminated Edomite that runs America, that set it up. And if you remember in this last session, didn't I mention chapter 41, verse 9, when Yah says to the chief men thereof, isn't that what he says? His arm would speak to the chief. This seed of David. Wait a minute, let me read it. 41, Yeshaya is where I'm going. Verse 9, but I'm going to probably go up a little above that. Okay? Matter of fact, I'm going to pick it up at verse 8. Right? But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, in whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. Okay? You whom I have taken from the ends of the earth, and called thee from the chief men thereof, and said unto thee, thou art my servant, I have chosen thee, and not cast thee away. Okay? And he goes on, fear thou not, for I am with thee, be not dismayed, for I am thy strong, and I will strengthen thee, yes, I will help thee, yes, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Behold, all they that were incensed against thee shall be ashamed and confounded, they shall be as nothing, and they that strive with thee shall perish. Okay, and I've witnessed that, and some of us have witnessed this already. Thou shalt seek them and shalt not find them, even them that contended with thee. They that war against thee shall be as nothing, as a thing of naught. For I, Yah, thy strong one, will hold thy right hand, saying unto thee, fear not, I will help thee. Fear not, thou worm, Yaakov, and ye men of Israel. I will help thee, saith Yah, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. Behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument, having teeth. You shall thresh the mountains and beat them small, and shall make the hills of chaff. Thou shalt fan them, and the wind shall carry them away, and the whirlwind shall scatter them, and you shall rejoice in Yah, he who creates, right? And shall glory in the Holy One of Israel. Okay. And again, he goes on to say about how the poor and needy might seek water, but you know, he's going to, you know, and what does it say? And there is none that and their tongue fails for thirst, right? When the poor and needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue fails for thirst, I, Yah, will hear them. I, the stronghold of Israel, will not forsake them. So I wanted to read that because, again, that's what I was saying earlier in this last session. I've spoken on it before without possibly reading this particular place, but, you know, we don't have to worry or try to, you know, contemplate or per se, we can't presume or assume that something's going to happen to us if we serve Yah. We have to trust in Yah and have to have that faith. Okay? And once we put all our faith in Yah, again, and serve him, he's going to open up doors, just like he did for our forefathers when he brought them out of Egypt, just like he did after that, even before that, just like he did with Yaakov, right? Even though Yaakov, you know, Israel was deceived by his uncle, what happened? At the end of the 14th year, right? Then Laban had to tell him the real reason when he saw that Yaakov was determined to leave. And then he had to tell him the real reason, in other words, why he had deceived him 7 years earlier. Okay? Because he saw that Yah had blessed him because of him. Because we can see in the book, Laban was an idolater. He knew about Yah. You understand? As all Abraham's family did. But he worshipped idols and images, just like many of us today. Okay? And I'm talking about of the children of Israel that have awakened. Okay? Because I have no doubt that many of the children of Israel have heard about Yah's righteousness at some point in time. Okay? Just like I was looking at the screen today, and I saw different ones come in with their last name, Israel, you know, with an Israelite name. Some of them only stayed a minute or two, and then they left. Okay? And didn't come back. And many others that's in these chat rooms, you know, and I mentioned this in the past, some of them have overflow rooms, and I'm sure most of them, many of them are aware of Yah righteousness. They hear what we talk about, but they what? They're into idols. They're into images. Okay? So they move on. All right? Because this room is not into idolatry in any shape, form, or fashion. This room is about Yah righteousness, the King, period. He's the one to be worshipped. He's the only one that's worshipped. He's the one that's being followed. But at the same time, he set up this movement that he spoke of in this book, right? What does it say? I've given him for a witness, a leader, and a commander to the people. In Yeshaya, right? And that 50, what's that, 55? Okay. Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye buy, eat. Yes, come buy wine, milk without money and without price. Because when you come to this room or when you call here, you're not told that you got to deposit some money by credit card or check or cash before you hear what comes from this movement. Okay? Wherefore did ye spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfies not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear and come unto me here, and your soul shall live, and I will make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David or David, right? Behold, I have given him for a witness to the people, a leader and a commander to the people. Behold, you shall call a nation that you know not, and nations that knew not thee shall run unto thee because of Yah thy strong one, and for the Holy One of Israel, for he hath glorified thee. right? Seek ye Yah while he may be found, call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return unto Yah, and he will have mercy upon him, and to our strong one, for he will abundantly pardon. Okay, so again, Yah has said that he was going to set up his movement, and this movement is the embodiment of Yah. You know, he's embodied in this movement. This movement represents him. You know, you'll see it again over in Zechariah chapter 12. And that's when we get back. Okay? And what does it say? The most feeble amongst us should be at this day of travail when we get attacked by the Assyrian or the Iraqis. You understand? Because we go back to cleanse Jerusalem of all idolatry. Why? So that this third and last temple can be built, and built superiorly, because it has to be built. That's the only way that these chemtrails are going to get cleaned out of the air and out of the water and out of the soil. It's the only way the GMOs are going to get cleansed out of the air, out of the water, out of the soil, out of the crops. That's the only way that's going to happen. That's the only way our blood is going to get purified, cleansed, that has not been cleansed. And when it says cleansed, it means 100%. Yeah, we can do cleanses now. That helps. Don't get me wrong. We should be doing that, like I've said on previous sessions, cleaning up our past, eating as right as we can. But at the same time, we understand it's getting harder. Okay? It's getting harder because, again, like I just said, the Illuminati Edomite, he's in the mindset. Remember, he has no wisdom and understanding at all. You know, and I talked about that in this last session, right? Yah has totally taken the wisdom and understanding out of him. You see that in the one chapter of Obadiah, right? When Yah said he was going to take all the wisdom and understanding out of the mount of Esau. That's all of them, from the least to the greatest, from the greatest to the least. Male, female, young, or old. It's not an Edomite on this earth right now that's got a scintilla of sense. Unless they turn to Yah, then, you know, then they might have a little sense. But if they're not about Yah in any kind of way, they have no sense, no illumination, no understanding. Okay? Because I'm pretty sure I said in this last session, Yah didn't say, or matter of fact, I think it was, it might have been in what Yedida played right before this session began today. Yah didn't say he was going to take his weapons from Esau. He didn't say he was going to take his gold and silver and diamonds and emeralds and sapphires from him, right? He said he's going to take all his wisdom and understanding. And that's why I said on this last session, okay, Esau has created something he can't even control, GMOs, right? And all this toxicity and chemtrails. Once you spray that out, now it flies on the wind. It goes everywhere. Okay? You can't control that. So it's like having a loaded pistol in the hand of a 2-year-old. Okay? So again, this is Esau's mind. His mind is, he understands that Yah's movement is here. He understands what this book says. He's been watching this, right, for you know, well over 2,000 years. Over what? 2,300 years? You understand what I'm saying? He been reading and studying this book. He became full-blown illuminated, as we've said in the past, as you probably heard. I think I said it on the earlier session, right before this part of what I heard, if I'm not mistaken, right after 161 BCE. Sometime after that, that's when he became, the illuminated Edomites then became full-blown illuminated, because they understood the book of Daniel. Matter of fact, I think I said it touched on in this last session, right? Can't say it enough, because people need to hear that. They need to understand that. I think I said that in relationship to, you know, them putting out all of these, you know, these other translations now, like the NIV. They flood because they understand what this King James Authorized Version is putting forth. See, they had too many out here. They couldn't call them back. You follow what I'm saying? Because the King James was everywhere then when they realized what that 11:14 Daniel was actually saying. See, you got to understand, even though they translated the book, they can only put in there and do what Yah allowed them to do. And it was things that even when they translated the book, they didn't even see. And that 11:14 Daniel is one of them. It might even be the most important thing that they didn't see, that they left in there. You follow what I'm saying? And then sometime later on in the future, okay, well after 1611, you understand? They saw it. But when they saw it, it was too late. You had too many copies. You understand, of the King James Version out here. It's my man, and I know I've mentioned this in the past. It very well could have been they didn't actually see it and were illuminated to Daniel 11 verse 14 into the last century. And then that's when, sometime in the early part of the last century, that's when they couldn't call all them King James versions back. All they could do then was come up with what? Newer translations, right? The NIV. You see what I'm saying? And other translations, and put them out there and corrupt that spot. But it was too late, because it was out. And again, if one has missed 11:14 there and verse 15, okay, then you lost. See, because you don't know who Esau is. You don't know when Esau came into play and started calling himself Israel in the sense of trying to actually circumvent us from being Israel by saying he was Israel, filling up that void, in other words. Okay? See, in the book of Esther, back in the midst of the 5th century BC, the 400s, right? Starting around 483 coming on down to 484 coming on down to 473, he had to say, in 473 BC, he had to say he was Israel to escape death. The ones that couldn't escape from up under a Persian rule. Okay, that's what you see there in Esther chapter 8. All right. But then when his descendants came, and we specifically talking about, quite naturally it was all Edomites, but definitely these Amalekite Edomites, right? But when they came with Alexander, you know, like I've said in the past, you know they wanted Alexander to attack us, but he wouldn't do it. That's one of the reasons that's the main reason we got to get rid of it. You see what I'm saying? Because they couldn't circumvent his dictates. He was the great king. Okay? So they waited and plotted, you understand, and eventually poisoned him together with Ptolemy Soter. Because they saw, and remember, you're dealing with the hunter. That's what these Edomites are, right? They take on the traits of their father. The hunter. They hunt. Okay? And again, that's why, you know, they do all what they do in our communities and in the communities of the world. Not only on Israel, but Gentiles and Hamites and Shemites alike. All right? They're the hunter. And they do all kind of subtle things. I know many of you heard in the last session, again, and I mentioned it in the past, when I read the article about how J.P. Morgan Chase is taking the children of some of these elite Chinese, supposedly, right? And they're giving them jobs. But again, are these really this Chinese? You know, maybe some of them are, you know, these children. But some of them is probably Edomite children that look like Chinese. Because that's, again, when the hunter hunts, what does the hunter do? Doesn't the hunter try to disguise his traps? Doesn't he try to disguise his means of hunting? You know, he doesn't want to be seen, right? So he puts on what? Camouflage, right? He puts on camouflage. But what's better camouflage than to, you know, look like a people who you're not? You understand what I mean? Portraying yourself as something who you're taking on their looks. Isn't that what the Edomites did when the Romans kicked them out in 135 CE AD? You had some that went up into Turkey and flipped color over a period of 500 years. You know, and flip color, what's they called? It escapes me now. I know some of you out there know what I'm talking about. With, you know, when they mix with the Turks, right? And they flip color. After 500 years, now they look, you know, like I've said in the past, they look like your Paul Newmans and Michael Douglases, right? And Kirk Douglases. You see what I'm saying? They got blonde hair and blue eyes. Some of them still had brown eyes. You understand? But they was pale. Look like Gentiles. Like your Rothschilds and your Kerrys, you know, your Secretary of State. You understand what I mean? Your Schiffs and your Warburgs and DuPonts and Rockefellers, like they look today. They look like Gentiles, but they're Edomites. You understand what I mean? So they put on camouflage. You understand? And they're hunting. See, and camouflage like that, they can go places where they couldn't go before. You follow what I'm saying? Because many of the Edomites, if you check their history and track them, like you've got to be able to do, you know that they caught a lot of heck from the Gentiles coming up through time, right? And not only Gentiles, but they caught a lot of heck from the Turks. Well, the Turks is Gentiles. There you go. You understand what I mean? So this is why when you go in and really look at that Yeshaya chapter 27 verse 7 that I read earlier, and it wasn't in this session, it was in what Yedida played right before this session. And if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure Esau, that's why we had to start doing it different. It was the January session, and when I read that 27:7, he messed with that because he didn't want you to hear that. So I'm going to read it now so that you can hear it, right? Hear it the way it's supposed to be. Okay, now this is 27:7 Yeshaya, right? And what is Yah saying? Have Yah smitten Esau as Esau smote the Gentiles that smote him, Esau, right? See? Question mark. Or is Esau slain according to the slaughter of the Gentiles that are slain by Esau? Okay? See, because again, you've seen, those of you out there that have been tracking Esau to whatever extent, you see he's kind of like an elephant. He doesn't forget, right? Doesn't it say in the book, and it escapes me right now where it is? Some of you out there probably privy to it, where it says that Esau, for the old hatred, for the old hatred. See, because he's still hating Yah and hating us for him not getting the blessing. All the way back there with the original Esau. And the Malachite Edomites are the epitome of this hatred amongst the nation of Esau. That's why, again, when you go back there to Exodus chapter 17, down at the bottom of the chapter, what did Yah say? Didn't he say he was going to have war with Amalek from generation to generation? So again, Yah is telling us that these Amalekite wing of Esau are going to be the epitome, the embodiment of this hatred towards him and us. For the old hatred, because they didn't get the blessing. You see? Okay. What's next?
Healing in his wings. He had a follow-up question.
Okay. Healing in his wings again.
And Michael on earth now.
Okay. So yeah.
No, that's Malachi.
Okay, Malachi, and again, yeah, Michael, Michael the angel is standing now. Yah has got him standing for the children of Israel, everyone that's found written in the book, everyone whose heart is one with Yah. He's the one protecting us, okay? Because just like I read there in chapter 30, Jeremiah, right? It's a time of trouble for Jerusalem. Those of us who are the descendants of Jerusalem, those of us who are going to make up this Jerusalem movement, we in trouble. Like everybody else. You know what I mean? Just like I said, it's getting harder to eat right, okay? It's getting more expensive, right? I mentioned this in the last session. I mean, you know, when I went to get this bottle of flaxseed oil, and it's $4 more than it was 3 weeks earlier. I mean, that's significant, isn't it? $4 jump, that's significant. I mean, you know, just rationalize that percentage-wise. I mean, it had been $35 a bottle, now it's $39. Okay? And we're going to see significant jumps like that. We've already seen them in other things. But, you know, it's been like $1, 75 cents, maybe $1.25. I haven't really seen $4 jump until I saw this, okay? But again, you know, lamb and some beef articles, you know what I mean, like steaks and whatnot, they've gone up. And we're going to see a more significant jump in a relatively, you know, near future, because we're looking at a failing dollar. Okay? So we're in trouble. We're in a lot of trouble. Again, you got crime off the hook, right? I mean, you know, crime is off the hook. Like I said in the first show we did with Mark Sims, for those of you who've seen it, those of you who haven't seen it can go back and see it. We put it back up. And right near the end, when I told Mark, I said, hey, you know, crime is going to rise, right? People are not going to lay down and die because they don't have a job. They're going to do whatever they think they need to do to sustain themselves. This is why crime is off the hook. See, just like that Mayor Bloomberg in the article I read in this last session, how he got voted down. You know, they stopped that stop and frisk in New York, and he tried to go back and get it instituted, but the city council voted it down. Okay, and then they also did what? They voted in to create a watchdog committee to sit on the police, to watch the police actions. See, because Mayor Bloomberg, he's an Edomite, more than likely an Amalekite, that's been put in New York City, right? The capital, really the financial capital of America, right? And he was put there. And again, why? Because they know that crime's going to rise, and they know it's going to rise definitely in the communities of the children of Israel, because we the last ones hired and the first ones fired, even if we have ever had a job. Like I just mentioned in this last session, most of us that have lived in these projects, and now you're into maybe about what, the third generation, you understand, of people who've been living and raised in projects. Most of them been on government dole-out. Most of them people never have had a job, because the girls, you know, start having babies, and I'm not saying of their own volition a lot of times, because a lot of times rape has occurred in these projects, and I'm not saying that's the only place it occurred, but we know it's been concentrated in a lot of these projects that they set up for us, where they got us, you know, had us walled in per se. You understand what I'm saying? Like concentration camps, building them up high to the sky and got us all in there, right? Jobless to the greater part, right? And the men have been attacked. But again, this is because of the curse. And then you've got many of us who are descendants out of Jerusalem, so we under the double curse. Okay? So with this overwhelming poverty, and then the mindset that, you know, the only way that you can exist, you know, is to be on the government dole out. The women, they had these babies, right? And then they go get a check. And this is like a crippling to a great extent, all right? Because some of us have utilized that, you know, in the sense of when they got in this situation, they get a government check, but they didn't let that more or less, you know, hold them back and make them cripple them, where they just sat down and didn't do anything. You see what I'm saying? Some utilized that, just took the check, but kept on moving and made some strides still up an extent. But many of us were crippled and just reached in the box and got the check, until now reached the point where, again, Yah is upping the intensity through these Edomites, and they're knocking us off these vouchers. They're pulling back, they're contracting, and turning us out into the system with no checks, no vouchers, and no jobs. And like I said on this last session, many of us never had a job, and we're in our late 20s, 30s, some possibly even in their 40s or 50s, never had a job. Just been scrounging around, on crumbs, the crumbs of crumbs, hustling, you know, selling drugs, burglarizing, stealing, right? In and out of jail, okay? So this is what has crippled many of us, okay? And this was done by design. But at the same time, now Yah is having us kicked off these things, okay? Because it's time now to make a decision. It's time now to stop and consider. And Yah is upping the intensity. Why? Because he's here. Again, Michael, standing for the children of his people. Well, he's standing, and now many of us are brought to the position where we got to make a decision. And if we make the decision that we're going to turn and seek out the Creator and come to him, find out, awaken, and then make the decision that we're going to serve him and obey all these laws and these statutes and these ordinances, these judgments, and, you understand, precepts, all Yah's commandments with all our heart and soul. See, now Michael is standing to what? To protect all that do that, to shield all that do that, to feed all that do that. You see what I'm saying? To make a way for you. Just like he did for our forefathers, we brought them out of Egypt, just like he's done for any and all of Israel. You follow what I'm saying? Yah has done. He sends his angel. You understand? But it's still all Yah. You don't put an angel before Yah. It's still all Yah. The angels is carrying out Yah's will, carrying out his dictates to the letter. You follow what I'm saying? So those of us that turn to Yah, then he makes a way for us. You don't have to know, you understand, or see that way prior. You understand what I mean? That's what I was talking about in this last session. Because you get many of us who want to say, well, I can't do this because if I do this, this will happen. You don't know what's going to happen. If you serving the Most High, you don't know what He's going to do. All you'll know is that if you serve Him with all your heart and soul, He's going to make a way for you. And the way is going to be a right way. And when I say a way, that don't mean He's going to make a way for you to go out there and rob banks, or break in somebody's house, or sell heroin or cocaine or marijuana or alcohol. You understand what I mean? I ain't saying that. Doing something illegal, doing something not only illegal but that's destructive. I'm not saying that, because He'll make a way for you that'll be upright. Okay? And again, it doesn't have to be, when I say that, it's not necessarily where He's going to make a way for you where you're going to have an overwhelming infuse of economics, income. Okay? He might make a way for you where it's just enough for you to do what you need to do. Not necessarily what you want to do, but what you need to do. Okay, where you got to micromanage. Okay, because I was in that position for a long time, and I'm still in that position to a great degree, but not like I used to be, but it's still I have to manage. Like my grandfather, my maternal grandfather used to say, it's not how much you make, it's how you manage what you make. But Yah will make a way for you, and just like he says, and it's in the book, read chapter 37, Psalm sometime. All right, it's in there. If you delight in Yah's way, and embrace it with all your heart and soul, and you delight in His way, He'll bring your desires to pass too, and give you the desires of your heart. What's next?
Did you finish this one? David's name. Did you finish that?
Okay, again, Yah is asking me. I mentioned into I think it's Gabriel's question. The arm of Yah is the seed of David today, the seed of Zadok today. That is, again, has not revealed. Yah has not revealed who that is yet. And the Lewites, some of the Lewites. And this movement, when it leaves up out of here, it's going to have the king on the head of it, Yah of hosts, the seed of David, the governor, the seed of Zadok, the high priest, and some of the Lewites of the priesthood. That's the arm of Yah. Those three entities. And each one of those entities, as we've said in the past, Yah has made an everlasting covenant with, a special covenant that you see referred to in Ezekiel chapter 16. You understand? He made a covenant with all Israel, but He got a special covenant with Jerusalem. And again, you can go and see those special covenants. You understand? The seed of David, David and his seed, 2 Samuel chapter 7, right? The Lewites for killing the firstborn, man and beast of Egypt, Numbers chapter 8, Numbers chapter 18. It's mentioned in a couple other places, right? And the seed of Zadok, basically mentioned in, chapter 42, 40, and 44 Ezekiel. Everlasting covenants. What's next? Explain Yeshaya 54 verses 9 to 17. Well, again, I know it's talking about more of the desolate than the married wife. Let me see. 9 to 17. Okay, for this is the waters of Noah unto me, for as I have sworn that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth. That's why we got the rainbow. Right? That's why we got the rainbow. Where is that question again? Okay. This is feel real, right? That's why we got the rainbow feel real. So the Yah's covenant. I know many of us that live in these cities haven't seen a rainbow in a while because of all the pollution, right? But it's still there. You get out in the countryside away from so much of this concentrated pollution, and every now and then you'll see the rainbow. Every now and then we see it in Chicago, but it's rare. Okay? So I have sworn that I would not be wroth, angry with thee, nor rebuke thee. So Yah is telling us today, he's not angry with us. Those of us who turn to him, in other words, and I've spoken on this before, it's like Yah is saying to us today, once we awaken to the fact we Israel, he's like saying, okay, and it says this here in Yeshua. He said, I'm going to make all your sins and transgressions as white as snow, though they be like scarlet. You understand? I'm going to make them white as snow. In other words, the door is open. And he said in another place, he said, I'm not, remember not the former things. What's that, 42 and 43 Yeshua? He says, remember not the former things. In other words, that's over with. You got a new slate now. It's up to you on what that's going to be. You got a chance now to make a decision and come to me and basically build on this foundation, this law. And all of this knowledge that we've got now, you understand, in this book of remembrance, that we understand that those of us who understand, there's only one Yah, he who creates, there's only one way, his way, and we must obey him. Because no man, no group of men, I don't care whatever nationality they are, can run this world to the benefit of all mankind and the world and all Yah's creation, because he is he who creates. He created everything. So it only stands to reason that he's the only one can run this whole situation, this world, and everybody in it. He's the only person, or should I say not person, but he's the only one that can run it to the benefit of everybody. And again, you understand, we must adhere to this law with all our heart and soul. Simple as that, okay? So, verse 10, for the mountains shall depart and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed. Again, Yah's made everlasting covenant with those who enter into the covenant with him. Pick that covenant out of the dust, pick it up and embrace it, right? Return unto him and obey. And again, like he says, the hills and the mountains going to remove again. You're going to have here, those of us, that understand, this daughter of Babylon that we reside in today, United States of America, is going to be utterly, totally destroyed. And this is not that far off. Okay? But before that happens, this Jerusalem movement is going to be brought out of here. And the second gathering from all over the earth, the ones who are going to come out of here, the daughter of Babylon, United States of America, out of the second gathering, who will be in the second gathering rather, that's got to take place. And then not long after that second gathering, about a year, 2 years later, about 2 years later, somewhere right in there, that's when the daughter of Babylon, United States of America, is going to be destroyed. So the hills and the mountains are going to depart, because it's going to be destroyed in one day in its perfection. You see that in chapter 47 of this same book, Yeshua. Okay, so then it says, because Yah makes a covenant of peace with us, all of us who return unto him, and not only us, but people of other nations as well. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? Like you see about people of other nations, strangers, Gentiles, Shemites, Hamites, that you see, basically, that's who's talking about, the stranger, right, who's not a descendant of Israel, over in chapter 56, Yeshua. Those who choose the things that please Yah, they're going to be accepted in his kingdom. Okay? His house is going to be a house of prayer. Not that you go into the house, we said this before, but you pray to the house and you pray to Yah. It's going to be, it's going to be for everybody that learns to love and care about the name of Yah and choose the things that please him. Okay, verse 11, oh, you afflicted, tossed with tempest and not comforted. That's the descendants of Jerusalem. We got a double curse on us. Simple as that. Tossed with tempest and not comforted. I've said in the past, I noticed coming up through time that different people could tell me their problems, just like many do now. Many people call here and we counsel. Right? Like that's part of my job. And, they got problems here or there. And I listen and do my best to, direct them to Yah and to feed them what Yah has put in this book, to aid them and abet them in making a right decision so that their problems can cease. But I've noticed in time, not per se with the people that call you, but people I've known in my life, personally, they can tell me their problems, but if I start to tell them my problems, they had no time to hear my problems at all, okay? I've even been told by different people coming up through time, you don't have no problems, don't nothing bother you. You all right. They tell me that. You follow what I'm saying? Tossed with tempest and not comforted. Okay? You see what I'm saying? That's part of that double curse, right? Behold, I will lay thy stones with fair colors and lay thy foundations with sapphires. Again, this is Jerusalem he's talking to. He's talking to the descendants of Jerusalem that turned to him and the city itself, right? And I will make thy windows of agates and thy gates of carbuncles and all thy borders of pleasant stones. This is Jerusalem and eventually all Israel, right? And all, when I say all Israel, the nation and all that return to Yah and obey, right? And all thy children should be taught of Yah. Isn't that right? You understand what I'm saying? That's again why another imperative that this temple has to be built. You follow me? Like I said a minute ago, that's the only way our blood is going to get cleansed that is not being cleansed. That's the only way the heavens and the earth are going to get cleaned up from all this toxicity and pollution. The ground, the water, all right? It's the only way. That's what's going to bring, that's going to probably maybe be the main impetus for these elites. See, because again, they can't control this. You listen to a lot of these elite. I remember I mentioned this in one of the sessions I think last year. George Bush, George W., right? He don't eat anything but organic. Okay? That's what I read. All W eats is stuff that's organic or supposed to be. You understand? Now, and those of you who knowledgeable of this, Prince Charles, the whole British monarchy, they all into eating per se. I know Charles is, and if Charles is, Camilla is, and more likely than not, William and Harry, you understand, Andrew, they all into eating organic. They know the significance in eating organic. But how you going to do that when the world is inundated with GMOs and chemtrails? How you going to do that? See? Again, this is what's going to bring them to the way of the Most High. Because they're gonna, they're gonna understand, like, this is our only chance. Just like Yah is telling us, the door is open now. You understand? But like he says, come unto me, why you got the chance, why he may be found. I didn't read that, you understand, over here in this chapter 55, Yeshai, right? Verse 6. Matter of fact, I did read it. Seek ye Yah while he may be found. Call ye upon him while he is near. Well, he's telling us that. He's saying that to us, and we're saying that again. He's saying it to all mankind. Well, these elite, they gonna come. You understand? They monitoring right now. If they not listening right now, they got somebody listening, recording this. They're gonna come back and listen to it later. You follow what I'm saying? Like I've said in the past, don't think when you look at this screen, because you only see who you see on this screen, that these the only ones that's listening to this message. All right? Because they can listen to it and they don't pop up on the screen. Okay? I remember one time we were doing this Pal Talk, and it was like 59. It was 59 that was up on the screen. Like all of a sudden came up. It had been showing something like, I think, 30. Low 30s, and then it's like 59 popped up on the screen, right? And then after a little while, about 30 of them disappeared all at once. Okay, and it was down in like the 20s again. You see what I'm saying? So don't think that they're not listening. They listening, they watching. This is their salvation and their only chance. And they're not gonna miss it. They just not gonna make a mistake. They're gonna make sure this is it. You see what I'm saying? Because they're not gonna make a mistake. Yah's gonna see to that. That's why he say he's gonna bring them to his arm, to his movement, to him. Okay, verse 13. Okay, I read that, right? So again, when he brings us back, and then he cleans us up and purifies our blood, that's when he's gonna bring forth these holy children. 59 Yeshua, the last verse. The children who will always be about him. See, they're not going to be, they're not even going to come into being until he's cleansed our blood. These going to be the holy children, and they're going to be peace. They're going to have an abundance of peace forever. They're not going to have it like us. See, because we the repairs of the breach. 58 Yeshua, right? We can repair the breach because we were, as like David said, we were born in sin and shapen by iniquity, huh? But now those of us who have searched out Yah, found him, and turned to him with all our heart and soul, now he's what? He's refining us like silver. He's preparing us, right? So we can never be the holy children, but we can be the repairs of the breach, the restorers of the path to dwell in, huh? And that's what we in the process of doing. You follow me? We stand in the breach, and we know both sides of it. We know the iniquitous side. Now we know the right side. Those of us who, Yah is illuminating out of his word. See? And then we can, when you know the right side and the wrong side, now we can repair the breach. Right? Verse 14, in righteousness shalt thou be established. You hear that? In Yah righteousness, we being established, right? It predicated on his laws and statutes. That's his righteousness, huh? That's why again, Yeshua chapter 46 verse 13, he is brought near his righteousness. That's what makes this King James Authorized Version the one to be read, because it's the only one. I just had a person tell me that the other day. He called, we was talking, he's called before. He said, yeah, bro, he said, I checked it out. He said, this King James Version is the only one that's all over the world. I'm like, ain't no doubt. It's near everybody. That's why y'all can say, and has said, did say, I brought near my righteousness, right? And again, in 51, verse 5, Yeshua, what does he say? My righteousness is near. And this King James Authorized Version is all over the world in over 2,000 languages. No other translation. All right? So then what does he say? Thou shalt be far from oppression, for thou shalt not fear, and from terror, for it shall not come near thee. Again, that's when he gets us back, right? And then we go through this little situation, and then, you understand, we'll be the beacon on the hill. I've mentioned this in the past. In the addendum, it was that chapter 30, Yeshua, until we a beacon on the hill, the beacon of Mount Moriah in Jerusalem, Mount Zion, a light to the world. Okay? And that's when no terror gonna come near us, right? Behold, they shall surely gather together, but not by me. Like I said a little while ago, I've already witnessed this. You understand what I'm saying? This been happening, man, all the way back. I remember when my mother used to say I was talking crazy. That's all the way back 74, 75, 76. She used to say, oh, you talking crazy. Go, I don't want to hear that crazy talk. Right? That's when she was in the idol. But now, in the last, about the last 20 years, my mother's all about Yah. She changed her name in 95. You couldn't get her, you couldn't make her go into a church house. All right? She downstairs right now doing the Sabbath day. Okay? Down there reading, studying. All right? My mother, she knows more than a whole lot of people, and she's 90 years old. If you want to catch a problem, just come around my mother telling her about some Jesus. See what happens. Okay? See what she say to you. All right? So again, but it's been others that have gathered together, against me, and I know there's other servants out here, we've talked, that are totally about Yah now. You know what I mean? And they've gathered together against them. But what does Yah say? He said, but whoever does that it should not be of him, right? Whosoever shall gather together against thee shall fall for thy sake. And like I said a little while ago, I witnessed this. I've seen some fall already. And when I say fall, I mean fall. I mean they're no longer on this earth. I've mentioned my first wife, right? But it's others, okay? Some of you, many of you out there have even heard about, used to listen to his radio show. I'll mention his name, and that's a great name. I hate to associate it with him, all right? Because I didn't have anything for him at all, because I saw him. I saw him early. You understand what I mean? When, in this situation, okay? Matter of fact, when I say early, y'all let me see him early, but I didn't really understand him until 2010. because I really didn't know anything about him back in 98 when he called in, January 98, right? But I really saw him in 2010, and he had been throwing stones at this, okay? It's some of you right here in the room right now, y'all know exactly who I'm talking about, okay? And he's no longer here, died earlier this year, okay? And again, I'm not happy, I'm not sad, I'm just stating a fact, simple as that. But it's been others that you don't know about, you follow what I'm saying, that was in my personal life that rose up against me. They're not here. Some of them was even my relatives. They're not here anymore. Okay? So again, behold, verse 16, I have created the smith that blows the coals in the fire, that brings forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment you shall condemn. Of the servants of Yah, and their righteousness is of me. I think, didn't I see, okay, it was 9 to 17, right, okay. And again, we've been under attack. They started attacking us before I was born, and I'm 62, okay. Like I said in the past, they started attacking us back in 1900. You could really even say 1897, because when they saw William Crowley started to teach that we were Israel in 1896, he was in New York, even though he was hooked up still into the idol, but he started to teach that we were Israel. The very next year, they fulfilled that over in the one chapter, Obadiah, when Yah said, those who eat of that, he talked about Esau, right? Said, those who eat of thy bread, those who took you to the border, have laid the wound up under you. Okay, well, who took the Theodore Herzl movement, the Zionist movement to Israel? It was the Illuminati Edomite, the House of Rothschild. Okay, that's why right now today they call Jacob de Rothschild the king of Israel. Okay, because he the head of the Rothschild family today. And I look at him as that, you know, who Yah's talking about in Yeshaya chapter 14, Lucifer, son of the morning, who thinks he's like Yah. Okay, but again, Yah's going to bring him down to the sides of the pit. Okay, simple as that. Malachite Edomites, right? So again, they've been attacking us, like I said, because when they took that Theodore Herzl movement to the land in 1897, the very next year after they saw us starting to awake, that's an attack, because they're trying to fill up, you know, the void of Israel. In other words, Israel's in the land. So what are these people? Because they knew when we started talking about Israel, what are they talking about? They ain't Israel. Here's Israel over here. You understand what I'm saying? But again, this was prophesied there in Obadiah. It's also prophesied in Malachi chapter 1. When Yah said, you understand, Esau said, though we are impoverished, we shall return and build the desolate waste. And we've spoken on this, you know, in the past, right? That's why they've been building ever since 1897. Ever since they've been brought back to the land. They've been building ever since. That's why they can never stop building. That's why these peace agreements is never going to work. They building right now. They're supposed to be in peace conference with the so-called Palestinians, who are, again, out of 7 of the tribes of the 10 tribes of Israel. They descendants of Israel, and they supposed to, you know, cease and desist building on occupied territory. They building as we speak, but they supposed to be in peace talks. That's why these peace talks are never going to work. Never going to work. See, and Yah is doing his best. You know, I shouldn't say it like that, because nothing too hard for Yah. I mean, but Yah is making it plain to our brothers and sisters, the so-called Palestinians, that what they're trying to do, you understand, because what they're trying to do is get what's really their land, but they're not going to get, you know, what's being offered to them is like a postage stamp compared to what, you understand, the previous agreement was talked about all the way back there in 1917 with the Balfour Declaration. It's like a postage stamp, all right, in comparison to land mass. You know, the Edomites has only offered them a little sliver, all right? And our brothers and sisters, some of them over there, you know, not Hamas, that's another reason why they attacked Morsi and took him out over there in Egypt, because Morsi was hooked up with Hamas. You follow me? See? That's another reason why they attacked him. See, Morsi was possibly trying to do like Gaddafi. All right, Gaddafi was trying to play Esau's role, both ends from the middle. You follow what I'm saying? Because near the end, that last few years, he got into bed with Tony Blair, Lloyd Blankfein, Jamie Dimon, right? I've spoken on this before. That's why they went in there and took him out. You know, after they took 98 billion of this $100 billion he gave them to put into a sovereign fund for Libya for him. You understand? They took 98 billion of that. They told him one day, oh man, 98 billion is gone. Okay? And he was upset. He was highly upset. And then, you know, the word I heard was he put a hit out on Blankfein, Tony Blair, Jamie Dimon. So they like, okay, we got to go get him. You see what I'm saying? And they did that. You follow me? Okay. So again, Morsi, he was hooked up, you follow what I'm saying, with Hamas. All right? That's why more than likely Morsi, when he first, if you notice, when he first got in there, after they, you know, all the people rose up, just about all, you know, like 99% rose up against Mubarak. So Esau pulled him out of there because they're like, hey man, you got to go. All right? Because we got to quell this. You understand what I mean? And so they ended up letting Morsi come in there. Cause Morsi, he was talking one way to them, and they figured they could put him in there and that would quell the Egyptians, which it did for a little bit, right? But I checked Morsi out when he got in there. If you notice, he went against Ahmadinejad. You remember that? He spoke out against Ahmadinejad. So when he did that, I said, oh, he Edomite puppet. You follow what I'm saying? I even said on one of the sessions we've done, right? But then, see, Morsi revealed himself more because he playing the game. He figured he probably could come out and talk against Iran. He knew, you know, Esau against Iran, and he don't necessarily know who he really dealing with per se. I ain't saying he really understand he dealing with the Illuminati Edomite. You understand what I'm saying? He might look at he just dealing with America. All right, and Britain per se, right? But the deal is that he was going to talk against Ahmadinejad, so that kind of like endeared him to the Leviathan, the snake, right? But then he's hooked up with Hamas. Like I said, they had that door open from the Gaza Strip on into Egypt, where, you know, our brothers and sisters could come from the Gaza and go on into Egypt and ferry back food and maybe some munitions and whatnot, right? So he had that door open. When Esau found that out, then he like, okay, he think he's slick. You understand what I mean? And so they ended up, and then they probably pulled some things economically on Egypt, made it real bad on the Egyptians, even worse than what it was. So you had many of the Egyptians rose up against him. You see what I'm saying? But you had still a lot that was for it. You follow what I'm saying? But now all they know is they starving like Marvin. Situation is getting worse under Morsi. You know, he's talking possibly, you know, some things that definitely they didn't like. So they rose up. Many of them rose up. And so Esau said, okay, this is our time to remove him, and we'll just put the army in power for a while until we pick another man. And that's basically where it is, because they control the army. You know, they paying the army over there. So they a bunch of sellouts. You know, we spoken about that in the past. You know, they had them close that door when they saw the Morsi had that door open. They had the army, when they pulled him out, they closed that door, all right? They gave the army $2 billion. That's what we heard. And they closed that door from the Gaza Strip, where our brothers and sisters, Hamas and them, had, you know, couldn't come through that door no more. You see what I'm saying? And they got more stringent on them again. You see what I'm saying? Because they don't want Hamas to rear its head at all. You understand me? Because they know Hamas is like to the death. They never going to make peace with them Edomites because they understand. See, so Esau deals with the sellouts, the Abu Abbasis, and Arakat. What's his name? Arakat. You understand? They deal with them. See. So again, but Yah should be. I'm sure it should be plain to many of them right now. See, you never going to be able to deal with these Edomites at all. And again, Yah is trying to make it plain to Hamas and Fatah and any of the rest of them, PLO, PNC, Hezbollah. The only way you're going to get up in that land, you got to deal with Yah. You got to come through Yah. Simple as that. Now, again, many of them are still not going to truly understand, because we know when Yah brings in the house of Yosef, or whatever parts of it, to knock off them Edomites, and y'all gonna run them out of land and kill them in their land, it's gonna be many of them, because the ones who's gonna do this, they're gonna understand this message. Okay? Because again, that's what it's talking about in that one chapter of Body, right? The house of David 4:5, that's the word. New sharp threshing instrument that I just read, right? In 41, Yeshaya, right? and smite the earth with the rod of our mouth, slay the wicked with the breath of our lips. Yeshaya chapter 11, right? New sharp threshing instrument, having teeth. That's the fire. That's the house of David. Not the house of Jacob, like it says. We've spoken on that before. The house of David. That's that fire. And the house of Yahoseh, Manasseh, Ephraim, whatever parts thereof, right? They're the flame. And then the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them. So these ones who are going to come of Ephraim and Manasseh, this word is going to fire them up. It's probably firing them up right now. You follow what I'm saying? And this is what they're going to understand. But you're still going to have many of them, once Esau is run out and judged in his land, who are going to come up into the land, descendants out of the 10 tribes, so-called Palestinians, right? Who are going to come up into the land who are not still going to understand this. And they're not going to be about Yah. And maybe some are going to turn and be about Yah. Okay? So again, Yah has been shielding us and protecting us ever since I've been into the world. Okay? I can look back on maybe possibly about 3 times in my life when I could have been dead. Okay? And Yah, I mean, it's no doubt that it was Yah that saved me. I didn't know for a couple of them times, one of them times, I didn't know it then. Okay? But I know it now. Might even been 4 times I could have been dead. But he was shielding me and protecting me. Some of you out there, you know, possibly have had situations where you look back on and you knew Yah saved you. Because again, they've been hitting us with shots ever since I've been into the world. They still do that. To go to school, to their schoolhouses, you understand, you got to get these shots. You know, a lot of these shots is tainted. There's different ones of us that are still got, you know, problems from these shots that's in us right now to this day. You follow what I'm saying? We were attacked through the food chain. Okay? The things that we ate, the things that we drank. You understand? Fluoridated water for one. Okay? You see what I mean? They wasn't always fluoridating water. Now, quite naturally, that attacks everybody, but, you know, it's a concentrated attack against Israel. Look at all the drugs in our community. Look at all the guns in our community. And look how this became concentrated and intensified in the late 60s on up to this very day. And again, no jobs. Okay? That's an incendiary situation, an incendiary environment. Okay? So Yah's been protecting us, but no weapon formed can stop us. Because he's protecting us. You know what I'm saying? All right, what's next?
Isaiah 21.
Okay, feel real, what? Okay, Malcolm, Yeshaya 21. Okay, the burden of the desert of the sea as whirlwinds in the south pass through, so it comes from the desert, from a terrible land. The grievous vision is declared unto me, the treacherous dealer dealers treacherously, and the spoiler spoils. You know, that's a little further. O Elam, besiege, O Media, all the sign thereof have I made to cease. Therefore are my loins filled with pain. Pains have taken hold upon me as the pains of a woman that travails. I was bowed down at the hearing of it. I was dismayed at the seeing of it. So this is Josiah talking. My heart panted, fearfulness, affrighted the night of my pleasure. Hath he turned fear unto me. Prepare the table, watch in the watchtower, eat, drink, arise, ye princes, and anoint the shield. So they're talking about war. But thus hath Yah said unto me, go set a watchman, let him declare what he sees. And he saw a chariot with a couple of horsemen, a chariot of asses, and a chariot of camels, and he hearkened diligently with much heed. And he cried a lion, my Lord, I stand continually upon the watchtower in the daytime, and I am set in my ward whole nights. And behold, here comes a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen, and he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, Babylon is fallen, and all The graven images of her idols he hath broken unto the ground. O my threshing and the corn of my floor, that which I have heard of Yah of hosts, the strong of Israel, have I declared unto you. The burden of Duma. Okay, now, this here at the top, what we just read from 1 to 10, okay? I know, you know, media is, again, was part of Russia today, but that's also what was part of Persia in the past, and they hooked up to this day. You know, Russia and Iran. Iran is Persia. Russia, you know, media is in that. Okay, now Elam, that's the ones with the bow. You know, I got to read this some more. I got to work on this because, you know, I'm not just sure. I would think this is talking about, especially down here at the bottom, these last, you know, 3-4 verses is talking about today. Okay, that's what I'm thinking. All right, because you know it says all the nations gonna be against Babylon, daughter Babylon, around about, all of them. You know, its mother is not gonna be against it, but they're not gonna be able to help it. In other words, Britain, right? And picking it up from verse 11, the burden of Duma, he called to me out of Seir, watchman, what of the night, watchman, what of the night? Okay, and you know Seir is the land of Esau. The watchman said, the morning comes and also the night. If you will inquire ye return, come. The burden, okay, now that's, again, you know, what the doom that the Edomites are facing, which is coming soon, right? And again, that could very well be what's in the very near future. Okay, Yada said that's an oracle talking about what's to happen. The burden upon Arabia, in the forest in Arabia shall ye lodge, or ye traveling companies of Dedanim, the inhabitants of the land Tema. Okay, Tema, that's the land of Esau. Brought water to him that was thirsty, they prevented with their bread him that fled. For they fled from the swords, from the drawn sword, and from the bent bow, and from the grievousness of war. Okay, well, we know many people are fleeing today, out of Syria, out of, well, it says Arabia, right, which is, again, Arabia, basically, Ishmaelites, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Yemen, and there's plenty of people fleeing from some of those places, Bahrain and Yemen. You know, we mentioned in this last session here that they dropping drones. The drones is dropping bombs on some of those people in Yemen that's protesting, you know, against the puppet that Esau's got set up over them, right? We know different people from different lands are fleeing into other lands to escape war. Because they just said in Syria, 2 million Syrians over the last 2 years have fled into other lands. You know, Jordan and Lebanon, I think it is, and some I think have gone to Iraq even, fleeing from the war. For they fled from the swords, from the drawn sword, and from the bent bow, and from the grievousness of war. For thus hath Yah said unto me, within a year, according to the years of an hireling, and all the glory of Kedar shall fail, and the residue of the number of archers, the mighty men of the children of Kedar, shall be diminished. For Yah, the strong of Israel, has spoken it. So, you know, I have to read on this some more, and maybe Yah will give me some real clarity, because I'm pretty sure this is talking about today and beyond today, but I can't be just exactly sure, so I got to read on this some more. Okay? What's next? I see January 5th, 20. Okay, that's something else. Okay, this person I can't make Yah or one Yah. Can they not just simply ban you from Pal Talk altogether instead of thinking that they are playing a childish game? Yeah, but they can't. Let's look at it like this. They can't knock out Yah's word. Yah's word got to get out. You follow me? And it could very well be you got some Edomites and some don't want this word to be heard, but the elite do. They want to hear it. And the elite, they don't actually want to, they might even have had some people call here, because I'm sure, it's people that I've talked to in the past that I don't even talk to who haven't called, in a while, maybe a couple of years, 3-4 years, right? But I've had conversations with, and I don't know who they are. You follow what I'm saying? It's been Gentiles, it's been some, sound like some of my own people, whether they were or not. I'm talking about over in Europe, they called from, various other places, and they wanted flyers. I remember one brother used to call regular, at least that's, what he told me. He was in Switzerland, in, what was it? Is it Lausanne? He was in Switzerland, and he used to call every Sabbath early in the morning, because the time frame is different. And he wanted some flyers first. I think I sent him a couple of flyers. Then right before he stopped calling, he wanted me to send him some flyers of quite a few, and I did that. Never heard from him again. The flyers never came back. He must have got them, but like I say, I don't know, if he was calling for him or if he was calling for somebody else. You see what I'm saying? You don't know. But again, if the power elite wants this, if they want to get out, and again, we know Yah works different ways. You see what I'm saying? He works through people. Always works through people, basically, except, that last battle that we see coming, he's going to fight that, right? But he works through people for a lot of things. And you possibly have got different Edomites that don't want the message out. You understand? But you've got possibly some power elite that do. You follow what I'm saying? You see it again in that 27th chapter, Yeshaya, verse 5. Yah's talking about the Illuminati Edomite there, right? Did he say that they gonna make peace with him? He said he's going to make peace with me. Okay? So again, this is Yah's message. He wants it out. And so it's got to get out. But again, what did we just read a few minutes ago? Did it read where they shall surely gather together against you? In that 54th chapter, Yeshaya at the back end, one Yah? They shall surely gather together against you. So Yah is telling us that different ones are gonna, some of our own people, some Edomites, right? Some Gentiles, some Shemites, some Hamites, it could be all of them. He's telling us they're going to gather together against you, but all who do shall what? Shall fall for thy sake. Right? Okay, Malachi, so is Michael on earth now? Well, again, when you say on earth, he's here. And again, he's, just like he could be, standing right up over us, you understand, watching over everybody that's about Yah on the earth, everybody that's in pursuit of Yah on the earth. Let me say this to you, Malachi, and everybody who's listening. Go to Daniel chapter 10. And just to show you how Yah works, because Yedida just brought that up about Yeshaya chapter 21, and I don't see that in clarity right now. Okay, he might give it to one of you out there before he gives it to me. I don't know, but the deal is this: what I'm taking you to. He just gave this. Let me see this. I've been reading this for years. I've been reading. It'll be 40 years next month. Okay? But he just gave this to me a few weeks ago. And I was telling it to Yeshaya and Yedida. I had already told it to Yada. So I was telling it to Yeshaya and Yadida, we were on the phone. When I said it, Yeshaya, y'all illuminated him on the spot. I could tell it's like a light bulb when it gets bright all at once. he said, that's right, you understand? Now this here in Daniel chapter 10, it starts out Daniel's, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, right? So that's 535 BCE, right? And Daniel tells you that he was afflicting his soul for 3 full weeks. That's 21 days, right? He didn't eat any pleasant bread, but he was eating bread, but it wasn't pleasant to him. All right? He ate no flesh and drank no wine. So, again, he did eat flesh. He just didn't eat the flesh that Nebuchadnezzar and the Chaldeans was eating when he was up there. So they, and for that period of that time before he got elevated. Okay? He wasn't eating the garbage they were eating. The unclean stuff, right? So that's why they ate, him and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah ate pulse, vegetation for those days. And then y'all, fatten them up, and then, the captain of the guard, because Daniel was in good favor with the captain of the guard, because Yah again controls the spirits, right? And so he's saying here in 535 BC, the 3rd year of Cyrus, that he's afflicting his soul for 3 full weeks. But it doesn't tell us why, and I've spoken on this in the past. But again, the reason he was afflicting himself, because the adversaries in chapter 4 Ezra have sent this letter to Cyrus, not Artaxerxes like Esau's got in chapter 4 Ezra, right? But in chapter 4 Ezra, the adversaries have written this lie, this accusation, and sent it to Cyrus, okay? Accusing Zerubbabel and Yahashua and them of doing something that they weren't doing, because they want to get this temple stopped. They don't want it built, right? When they got rejected. You understand? And they didn't want it built probably from the beginning. That's why they came up and wanted to take part, so that they could probably, obstruct and circumvent the temple from being built. But Zerubbabel and Yahashua and them said, you don't have any part in this, right? So they rejected them. And then when you go into chapter 4 of the book of Ezra, the adversaries wrote this accusation, this lie. Sent it to Cyrus. And we know it's Cyrus. Again, we've spoken on it in the past, but I'll just touch on it. Because when you get to the bottom of Ezra chapter 4, it tells you that when the adversaries got the letter back from Cyrus, not Artaxerxes, saying put a stop to it, more than likely till he had a chance to look into it, they rushed up and made Zerubbabel and Yahashua and them stop building that temple, the second temple of Yah, right? By force and power. And again, this is Daniel chapter 9, the first half of the 26th verse. The Messiah, after 62 weeks, would be cut off, but not for himself, right? And again, Zerubbabel and them came back in 536 BCE. Which was what? The 2nd year of Cyrus, because he came on the throne in 538. That's when Babylon fell, the original Babylon. So now they're in 536, because like we mentioned in the past, the way it says in the book, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 different places where it says in the 1st year of Cyrus, he issued the command to restore and build the temple. Okay, well, we know that's incorrect. That's some of Esau's tampering, right? It wasn't in his 1st year. It was in his 2nd year. In the 69th week. Doesn't it say that in Daniel 9, verse 24? In the 69th week, the commandment came forth to the Messiah, the prince, or Zerubbabel, the governor, to restore and build the temple, right? In the 69th week. It's 52 weeks in a year. Okay? All right. And then in the 70th week, they left. 1 week later, they left. Because that's what the angel's telling Daniel in chapter 9, right? Of the book of Daniel, right? That it was 70 weeks to go to complete the 70 years. All right. Now, they came back in 536 BCE. And then in Daniel chapter 9, verse 26. At the top of the verse, you see what it says? And after 62 weeks, which is 62 weeks, the Messiah shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. That's Zerubbabel. 62 weeks, right? So 52 weeks is a year. That leaves 10. 4 weeks is a month. So it was what? A year, 2.5 months after their return. Zerubbabel was to be cut off. Isn't that right? Okay, so when you go to Ezra chapter 3, verse 8, when they laid the foundation of the temple, this second temple, right? It tells you that it was in the second month of the second year of their return. 52 weeks in a year, 4 weeks in a month. Now this is the second month of the second year of their return. So 52, that's 1 year. 4 weeks, that's 1 month. That's 56 weeks. Now you're in the second month of the second year of their return. So you're anywhere from the 57th week to the 60th week. We don't know, but it just says second month of the second year. Now, it tells you, right, at the top of 26th verse in chapter 9, Daniel, after 62 weeks, the Messiah, or Zerubbabel, who was the prince of Yehuda, right, Yah's anointed, right, Ezra chapter 1, the last few verses is 2 Chronicles, the last chapter, chapter 36, 21st verse to the end. He was the anointed that Cyrus issued the command to. He was the Messiah to restore and build Jerusalem. Right? Okay. So now, somewhere from that 57th to that 60th week is where they were in the second month of the second year of their return, when they laid the foundation of the temple. And then they dedicated it. That's what you see in the rest of chapter 3 Ezra. And then that's when the adversaries in chapter 4 came up, wanted to take part, and they were rejected. And then they wrote this lying letter and sent it to Cyrus, right? Okay, so from the time that they dedicated the foundation and the adversaries came up, got rejected, wrote the letter, they sent it first to Darius Ahasuerus of the seed of the Medes, or Darius, the Persian, the Median. He forwarded it on to Cyrus. Okay? When Cyrus got it, he read it. But now, Cyrus, he didn't want to stop the temple. You understand? And this is what it's saying over here in chapter 10 of the book of Daniel. Because it's telling you at the top of the chapter again, it's the third year of Cyrus, which is 535. Now understand, when they came back in 536, it says in the second month of the second year of their return. So this is what? 56 weeks that have passed. The 1 year, 52 weeks, and 1 month, another 4 weeks. Right? So they're no longer in 536 when they came back. Now they're in what? 535. Or in other words, the third year of Cyrus. Right? Cyrus comes on the throne in 538. In other words, he was already the king of Persia, but now this is the beginning of the Medo-Persian kingdom in 538, when Babylon has been defeated. This is the second kingdom of man. Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, right? And Cyrus is the great king. Okay? 538. So the third year of Cyrus is 535. And this is where chapter 10 starts out. And Daniel says he was afflicting his soul for 3 full weeks, 21 days, right? He was afflicting his soul because Cyrus had gotten the letter from the adversaries accusing Zerubbabel and Yehoshua of doing something they weren't doing, because they wanted to get this temple stopped, not to be built. Okay? When Cyrus gets the letter, now he's agonizing. He does not want to put forth a command to stop the building of this temple. And that's what this is talking about over here chapter 10 of the book of Daniel. Now listen to this and listen well. The angel was sent to Daniel, okay, as you read here, right? Verse 5, a quaking came down. The men that Daniel were with, they ran and hid themselves, right? And an angel appeared to Daniel. And he describes the angel in chapter 6, right? And he tells you in chapter 7 that he alone saw the vision, right? Because the other men ran and hid, okay? And then in verse 8, it tells you how he was left alone. And he saw this great vision. And he had no strength in him because he was afraid. All right? And his comeliness turned into corruption because he had no strength. Right? Then verse 9 he says, yet I heard the voice of his words, the angel. And when I heard the voice of his words, then I was in a deep sleep on my face, of my face toward the ground. Verse 10, and behold, a hand touched me, which set me upon my knees and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, this is the angel talking to Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright. For unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling, because he was afraid, as you or I, anybody else would be in this situation, I'm sure. Verse 12, then said he unto me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you did set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before Yah thy strong, and thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince, now listen to this now, verse 13, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, the same Michael that's standing today for the children of Israel, right? One of the chief princes or chief angels, right, came to help me. And I remained there. Now you see what Esau got here? I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now this is how Esau does. This should say, and did say, I remained there with the king of Persia. Singular, not plural. Esau put an S here. And you see how it says that he was there. Verse 13, he said he remained, he withstood me, this prince or king of Persia, right? Singular. Same person. King, prince, same person, right? He withstood me what? 21 days. Again, what does Daniel say over here in verse 2? Doesn't he say he was mourning 3 full weeks? How many days is that? That's 21 days, isn't it? Same amount of time. You follow me? Now the deal is, this is talking about Cyrus. And when Cyrus got that letter from the adversaries accusing Zerubbabel and them of doing something they weren't doing, asking Cyrus to put a, more or less to put a stop to the building of this temple, because these people were seditious and whatever else they accused them of, right? Cyrus wrestled with it. He didn't want to do it. You understand? He didn't want to do it. When he heard this letter, more likely he was standing in the court because he was of great degree. When the letter was read to Cyrus, you understand? That's why he started when the letter was read, and then Cyrus was, okay, I got to think about this. Because Cyrus he don't want to do it. But Daniel has already been told in chapter 9, which was 3 years earlier, right? In 538, he was already told that this was going to happen. Isn't that right? Don't we see this in the top of verse 26 in chapter 9? We just read it. After 62 weeks, the Messiah is going to be cut off. Daniel was already shown this 3 years earlier. When he saw the kingdom translate hands from the Chaldean Babylonians to the Media Persians. Because that's why in the top of chapter 9, he was like confused now, because he knew the prophecy of Jeremiah. He knew after 70 years in Babylon, they was to be cut loose. And Daniel was taken up in the first bunch in 606. So he knew in 536, they were supposed to be cut loose according to the word of Yah. But when he saw the kingdom translate hands from the Chaldean Babylonians to the Media Persians, in 538, or in other words, 70 weeks short of the 70 years, right? And the 70 weeks is what? 1 year, 1 year, 4.5 months, right? Because 52 from 70 leaves 18. 4 goes into 18, 4.5 times. So it was a year, 4.5 months left to finish off the 70 years. And Daniel, he knew this, so he's like counting, as he tells you in chapter 9, and he's like wondering, are we still going to get cut loose after the 70 years? And then he started confessing his sin and the sin of Israel. That's when the angel was sent to him in chapter 9 to tell him, to give him understanding of what was going to happen. And he told him, you understand what? In 69 weeks, the commandment is going to come forth to who? The Messiah, the Prince, or Zerubbabel, to restore and build Jerusalem. Again, not in the first year of Cyrus did Cyrus issue this decree, as we talked about in the past, but in the second year of Cyrus, in the 69th week, when it was 1 week to go. Okay? So now, Daniel's also told again at the top of 26th verse that after 62 weeks after they get back, Zerubbabel, the Messiah, he's going to be cut off, but not for himself. In other words, something's going to happen. He's not going to want to stop building the temple, but he's going to be stopped. All right? So Daniel, he ain't told nobody about this. More than likely, he kept this to himself, but he's checking it out, and he knows what Yah has sent word to him. So now when the letter comes from the adversaries to Cyrus, Daniel knows this is the word of Yah. You understand what I mean? He knows that the temple going to be stopped. But Cyrus, he probably didn't tell Cyrus nothing. He got this in his heart. But Cyrus is wrestling with it. He don't want to stop the building of the temple. And you see what the angel tells Daniel over here in chapter 10? Check it out. Verse 14. Matter of fact, verse 13. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia, this is the angel talking to Daniel. This is 10:13, Daniel. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia, or Cyrus, right, withstood me 120 days. Because Cyrus didn't want to stop the building of the temple. So he's wrestling with this, he doesn't want to stop it. But the angel of Yah is working on it, okay? Because he got to stop it. This is the word of Yah. He don't know the word of Yah. You understand what I mean? Daniel knows it. You follow me? Cyrus didn't want to stop it. He's wrestling with it. See? And it took 21 days before the angel of Yah worked on Cyrus and did what? You see what it said? But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 120 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief angels, again, that's what he is, came to help me. And I remained there with the king, not kings, the king, or Cyrus, right, of Persia. You follow me? And then after 21 days, Cyrus, with Yah, through his angel putting pressure on it, he went on and relented and put a stop order on the temple. You understand? Now that's what this is talking about. But all these years, I never understood this just until here about 3 weeks ago, where Yah made it plain to me. Okay? And he made it plain so that everybody can hear this and understand it. Because that's what this is talking about. See, but there's little things that Esau has done in translating the book where it's like in code. And you got to go to Yah to get it. And he gives it to you when he's ready to give it to you. That's why I say about this chapter 21, you're shy. I'm not clear about that. So I gotta read on that. And again, he might give it to me, might give it to Yeshai, might give it to somebody else. You follow what I'm saying? They might bring it to me, and then when they bring it to me, the clouds will clear away, and I'm like, yeah, that's okay. You follow what I'm saying? But he'll give it to us when we need it. See, because Yah does this to make it plain to everybody that is him doing it, where he's the only one gets the credit. No human being is all Yah, all the time. And he gives it when we need it. See? Just like this here now. Because, you understand, somebody popped up on the screen earlier. And matter of fact, no, you know what? It was yesterday. Brother called here. He called them and told him he's down in Alabama. He called last night when the Sabbath had begun. And we talked, and he asked me about this over here in Daniel chapter 9. He had a question about it. Okay? you know, and about this Messiah thing, and I was able to go and relate this to him last night. See, because now we need it. We need this over. We need to understand this over here in chapter 10. But you saw it's done, how he puts an S. You understand? He put prince in one spot, put kings, plural, in another to confuse you. You understand? But once you really, you know, when Yah removes the clouds and he lets you see it, then you can understand. You can see what Esau has done. Like a sister, she sent a letter here just this past week. And in the letter, she was, you know, praising Yah and thanking Yah for this movement, because she said it's a lot of things since she's been listening to Yah righteousness that has cleared up and she's come to understand. In the letter, she said, but could we put out some kind of like printed form where, you know, like up on the internet, or some printed form where we're denoting all of the things in the book, you know, Genesis through Malachi, that Esau is tampered with. And so I wrote her back a letter, you know, Yada typed it up, sent it back to her, and I said in the letter, you know, there's no way basically we can do that. We've talked about these different spots that Yah has revealed, but we're still learning. Yah's still revealing things to us. Okay? Just like he just revealed this here in chapter 10 3 weeks ago. All right? Because this is talking about Cyrus. He wrestled with it. He didn't want to stop it. You follow me? Because and just to give you more clarity on it, just go back there to that spot that I just mentioned. You know, those two spots, Ezra 1 and 36th chapter, 2nd Chronicles, the last chapter, right? Start at verse 21 and read to the end. And what does Cyrus say? Yah has raised me up. Huh? Yah has given all these kingdoms, you know, these nations into my hand. And he's raised me up to do what? Build him a temple in Jerusalem. Okay? And again, it was his command that eventually got that kingdom built. Because like I just said in the last session, when you read Ezra 5th and 6th chapter, Cyrus is dead, been dead for maybe about 13 years. But you go in there and read what Darius, when all this was raised up and brought to Darius, when he got that letter from Zerubbabel and Yehoshua and them, and then it was read to him, and then he told his scribes, his chroniclers, he said, go and search the scrolls, the chronicles, and see if Cyrus issued a command of this nature, and whatever else he told him, and bring me back all what you got on this Yah, this God of Israel, this strong of Israel, right? And when they brought back and read all what they read to him, just go in there in chapter 6 Ezra and see what he said. Huh? See, because he was in consideration mode. And then when they ran all what they ran to him, look and see what he said. Huh? Okay? See? So it was the command of Cyrus that got that temple built. And Cyrus said that this is why Yah raised me up and has given me all these nations into my hand. Because Cyrus was Yah's servant that had been prophesied of all the way back in Yeshua chapter 44, the last verse in chapter 45. Is that not right? About 160, 200 years beforehand? Just like Yah is relating to Daniel, what he's going to do in this vision here. And the angel is telling Daniel that the king, or Cyrus, had withstood him 21 days. Because Cyrus didn't want to put a stop to the building of the temple. And so he wrestled with it. But again, Yah's angel prevailed. This is why, again, when you go back to that Genesis, right, chapter 32, and we've spoken on this in the past, right, when Yaakov, right before his name was changed to Yisrael, he who has power with the strong, right? Because you see in chapter 32 Genesis, Yaakov was afraid when his messengers came back. And he said, did you see my brother? And they're like, yeah, we saw him. Said, and he coming to meet you with 400 men. Okay, Yaakov, he's afraid. Doesn't he say that? He said, I fear Esau, because he'll come and kill up everybody, because he know he'll kill her, because he understood why his mother sent him
to her brother, his uncle. Because Esau had promised to kill him. So what did he say? Yeah, you told me to come back, but I fear Esau unless he come and kill up everybody. The children and their mothers, the mothers and the children. Huh? And so his faith was shaken. You follow me? His faith was shaken because he feared Esau when he should have been fearing Yah. You understand what I mean? He wasn't supposed to put nobody before Yah. That's why it tells us in the Proverbs, right, that if we fear flesh, it'll be a snare unto us. We're not supposed to fear flesh. We're supposed to fear Yah and Yah alone. He's our strength. He's our salvation. He's our shield. He's our life. Simple as that, right? So when you read that 32nd chapter, Genesis, doesn't it say, and Esau tampered with that? We've talked about this in the past, right? When Jacob, out of his own mind, he split the family up, right? He sent one bunch one way, one bunch another way. He fell in the back, in the rear, away from both of them, both groups. Because he's saying, if Esau come up on this group, he'll wipe this out, but the other group will get away. And vice versa, right? But maybe, just maybe, if he come up on either one of them and don't find me with him, he'll let him go because he's just looking maybe just to kill me. So he fell in the back, way behind both groups, right? By himself. And then what happened? That night, Yah sent an angel on him. Now, he doesn't know it's an angel. He just thinks this is a man. And he starts wrestling with this man, right? And in the midst of wrestling with the man, the angel reaches down, touches his thigh, right? And now, you know yourself. If you're wrestling with somebody, I know you men out there know this, maybe you women too. If you're wrestling with somebody, you're using both arms and both legs for leverage. If you lose one of them, if one goes out, like what the angel touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh, and it's like his hamstring rolled up and went out, right? Now, he's in pain and he's lost leverage out of one of his extremities. Now, this who he thinks is a man is starting to overpower him. And what did Jacob do? See, this is what Esau took out. You follow me? Because he's translated this book. What did the Illuminati Amalekite Edomite take out? Jacob said what? Yah, help me. And when he said that, that's when this, who he thinks is a man, this angel said to him, now, you back on track. You understand? Don't you ever forget where your power rests, where your power lies. Your power is in Yah. And so what did he tell him? From now on, your name is no longer Jacob. Huh? Your name is Yisrael. For as a prince, you have power when you are with the strong one. And that's what Yisrael means. He who has power with the strong one. That's why Esau never wanted us to truly know the definition of Yisrael. Because if we truly understand this, then we're going to be with Yah. We're going to keep him first. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? All the time? We're supposed to put all our faith, all our trust, in Yah, and Yah alone. And when we do that, now he's our what? He's our strength. He's our shield. You understand? He's our lifeline. He's everything. That's where we get our blessings from. He's the one that feeds us. He's the one that houses us. He's the one that clothes us. He's the one that gives us water to drink. He's the one that shields us against all adversities. He's the one that has us go, you understand, away from the earthquake, not to it, okay? You follow what I'm saying? That's how we protect ourselves. He's our insurance, our ultimate. He's the only insurance. And the only way we can be with him is to what? Obey the laws, the statutes, the ordinances, the commandments, right? Take to heart his judgments, his testimony. You understand? The precepts and the testimonies of those who preceded us. That's why this book of remembrance is here, so that we can call all these things to mind. Isn't that what Moses told our forefathers in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2? When you call all these things to mind among the nations where Yah thy strong one have driven thee, if then you humble yourself and return to Yah, and in other words, and he says this, and obey all of this law I have laid before you, that then, the first two words in verse 3, that then Yah will remember the covenant he made with your fathers and bring the ones of you who do this with all your heart and soul, bring you back. In other words, Amos 9:9, he's going to sift you away like corn in a sieve from any and everybody whom you are around who are not doing this. He's going to sift you away like corn in a sieve. Not the least grain shall fall upon the earth, and bring you back. Okay? So again, you know, this is that what that's talking about in chapter 10 Daniel. You follow what I'm saying? And he goes on to tell Daniel, again, this vision, and show him this vision, which Daniel tells you he understood it. Doesn't he say that? He understood the vision? Where is that? You see verse 14? Now I am come to make thee understand. I'm in chapter 9 Daniel, verse 14. Chapter 10, excuse me. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days. And when he had spoken such words unto me, I set my face toward the ground and became dumb. Right? And now he's talking about another angel came, right? And touched him and stood him up, right? And strengthened him, right? Same thing in verse 18, right? Okay? See? So again, but Daniel tells you in verse 1, you see what he says? In verse 1, chapter 10, at the bottom, and he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. And the angel tells him he came to make him understand. See, this is why, again, we know the way Esau's got this set up. From chapter 10 through 11, it looks like it goes all the way through 11 on into 12. Right? When you get to verse 8 in chapter 12, Daniel is saying to the angel there that he doesn't understand, and the angel tells him, go thy way, for the book is sealed to the time of the end. That's a red flag. We know this can't be part of this vision that starts in chapter 10. Now you got to backtrack and find out where this vision in chapter 10 ends and where this vision that Daniel doesn't understand begins. And again, this vision that starts in chapter 10 ends at 11:35 Daniel. Okay? And that vision was for many days. Because when Daniel got this again, it's in the 3rd year of Cyrus, which is 535 BCE. When this vision that the angel showing Daniel ends at 11:35 Daniel, that's 164 BCE. Okay? During the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay? And it ended like right after that Hanukkah stuff that Esau, that he calls Hanukkah. Festival of the Lights. The 8 days that they took control of Jerusalem, wrested it away from the Syrian Greek army, attacked Jerusalem when they thought Antiochus Epiphanes had been killed in this battle with the Roman fleet out in the Mediterranean. We've talked about this in the past. Okay? And the Edomites, the Hasmoneans, Judas Maccabee, okay, Edomites attacked Jerusalem, took control of Jerusalem, killed up so many of the Syrian Greek army and ran the rest up out of there. And when the remnant got back up into Syria and found that Antiochus wasn't dead, he like, what you doing here? And they say, hey, we got attacked by Judas Maccabee and the Edomites. He's like, we're going to take it back. And then he got his army together and they went back, ran Judas Maccabee and the Edomites up out of there. He sent half his force after them, right? He stayed there in Jerusalem, and for 44 days he was killing many of our forefathers who were still in around the land, like it says there again in Daniel chapter 11, verse 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35, again, which is talked about in Daniel chapter 12, verse 12, when it says, you know, when the daily sacrifice was stopped in 168, December 25th, what we call it, 168 BCE, 1290 days later, that's when all this, you know, with the situation with the Edomites attacking Jerusalem and took control of it for 8 days took place. 1290 days later. All right. And then, you understand, like I said, right before them 1290 days, you understand, they took control of Jerusalem, and then he came and ran them up out of there. And then he was killing our forefathers for those 44 days. You know, them 12, what does it say? 1290 days, what it say, blessed is he that waits and comes to the 1335th day, right? Daniel chapter 12, verse 12. Blessed is he that comes to the 1335th day. So when you subtract 1290 from 1335, that's 45, right? Okay, so for 44 days, all right, Antiochus Epiphanes was killing our forefathers, okay? That's what he's known for that. You can look that up historically. They say he tried to extirpate the Jews. You know, they use that term Jew applied to us. But he was also attacking the Jews, the Edomites. Like I say, he ran them up out of there. And, you know, a little bit later on, in the early part of 163 BCE, you follow me? They caught up with Judas Maccabee, had a couple of battles. Judas Maccabee was killed in the early part of 163 BCE. Later on, in 163 BC, in the latter part, Antiochus Epiphanes died of an epileptic fit. Isn't that the prophecy over in chapter 8, Daniel? That this prince who understood the dark sentences would stand up against the prince of princes, that's Yah. The prince of princes, or the king of kings, that's Yah. He stood up against Yah, right? And said, because he was the one that stopped the daily sacrifice, Antiochus Epiphanes said, but when he stood up against the prince of princes, or the king of kings, Yah of hosts, right? He would be broken without hand. He died of an epileptic fit. All right? And he died in the latter part of 163 BCE. Okay? But for those 44 days, he was killing our forefathers, you know, killing them up. The ones that were still in and around the land that, you know, more likely the ones who had fallen away to him, as it tells you in Daniel 11, 31, 32, what does it say? An arm shall stand on his part. So the Lewites who was on the scene, the seed of David who was on the scene, the seed of Zadok, the arm shall stand on his part. They was up with him. Okay, sellouts. They cleaved unto him with flattery. And they was probably pointing out any of us who was condemning them for doing so. You know, just like now, if Jesse Jackson and Farrakhan and Al Sharpton, you know what I'm talking about, Al Sharpton, right? If they could, they hear this, if they could, they'd have Esau come and kill me. Okay? Like we said, possibly in the past, you know, that might have been what happened to Mark Sims, why he stopped doing the shows, because we watch Mark every now and then now. He still does shows with some of the people he was doing shows with even after us. You know what I'm saying? That he wasn't doing shows with when he first started doing shows with Yah Righteousness. You follow what I'm saying? And he does shows with them. But he doesn't do any shows with Yah Righteousness. He does some shows with Dr. Warner Plumline. Y'all go on his site, you'll see. He done some shows with him recently. Okay? So now what happened? Did somebody put a bug in Mark and scare him to death and tell him, hey man, you better stop dealing with that Yah Righteousness, you know what I'm saying? You won't have a job or whatever. You understand what I mean? And so he got scared. See, because he's not Yisrael, he's not hooked into Yah. He's not hooked into his power source. See? What's next? Is it gone back that far?
Yeah, that's right here.
Which one? Okay. Alon Yisrael, peace, brother Yehuda. Can you explain Yeshua 9:6? Who is this Prince of Peace? Well, again, it's the one that Yah works through. This is the same thing what the brother just asked me last night that I was just talking about. Okay. When you go into 9:6,
it says that for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, right? Okay, so you go to Yeshaya chapter 49. What does it say? Yah hath called me from the womb. Now this is the seed of David. Today, right? It says Yah has called me from the womb. That's his maternal mother, that he came out of her womb. Okay? And doesn't it say in 49, from the bowels of my mother have he made mention of my name? Okay, so he's talking about now our forefathers, is he not? From the bowels of my mother have he made mention of my name? And again, all you got to do is the very next chapter, chapter 50, Yeshaya, didn't y'all say there, where's the bill of your mother's divorcement whom I have put away? Talking about our forefathers, is he not? So he's referring to our forefathers as our mother, because that's who we are descended from. Wherever Israel is today in this world, we descended from our forefathers, which Yah is referring to in 50th chapter, Yeshaya, as our mother, right? So he's saying from the bowels, the servant in 49, Yeshaya is saying, Yah called him from the womb, from the bowels of his mother. Have he made mention of his name? Okay, so when you go to Jeremiah chapter 23, Jeremiah, right? And you read that, verse 5, and I just read it in this past session, the whole chapter, right? When you read verse 5 and 6, doesn't it say, and this is the name, he's talking about the seed of David, and he says, this is the name wherewith he shall be called. And doesn't it say, Yah is, it says the Lord our righteousness? Again, when you do some research, you find out that the Mezrites, these Edomites from the 4th to the 9th century CE AD, it was during this time period, they took the name of Yah out of the book and replaced it with El and Adonai, which evolved in El, God, Adonai, and the Lord. And then eventually, and so therefore when you read the Lord our righteousness, it did say, and should say, Yah our righteousness. Okay? So again, when he says here in verse 6, and the government should be upon his shoulders. Okay, so Yah, works through this seed of David, as he says in chapter 30, verse 9, Jeremiah, right? Whom I shall raise up unto thee. He illuminates him to this, and then he goes about setting this movement up. And again, the government upon his shoulders, right? When this person understands that it has to be called Yah our righteousness, now he goes about, he checks to see if it's in existence. It's not. So then he goes about setting it up. And it has to be incorporated. We've talked about this last year, early part of last year, right? Talked about it a couple, 2-3 times. And it has to be incorporated, of which here in Illinois you need 3 people. And when y'all sent the other 2 people, then I set about incorporating it. They acknowledged it. When it was incorporated, they sent it back. And again, Yah righteousness, you have to incorporate, you have to have a charter, you have to have bylaws, you have to have articles of incorporation. And quite naturally, they always want some money, so you set all that up, you get all that, and again, the charter is to uplift, magnify the name and establish the way of Yah of hosts. That's the charter. Okay? And then the articles of incorporation and the bylaws all come out of this book. The laws of Yah, the statutes of Yah, the ordinances of Yah, they all come out of this book. That's what makes up the articles of incorporation and the bylaws. So it's called by the name of the Most High, Yah righteousness.
just like it's written in Jeremiah 23, verse 5. It's predicated on the ways of Yah. Come straight up out this book. And that's why in Yeshaya chapter 43, when Yah says, and I'll read it to you verbatim. I'm in the 43rd chapter, Yeshaya. Verse 18 is where I'm going to pick this up. Remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. I touched on that a little earlier when I was, talking about how basically we got a new slate. The door is open. And Yah is telling us, again, remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now you're going to get some of these Christians and these people who's in Christianity going to tell you that's what that's talking about, right? But that's not even what that's talking about. Okay? What does it say? Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. And again, when it says, shall ye not know it, right? What does Yah say in Malachi 3:6? Doesn't he say he changes not? He changes not. It's still Yah. And it's still the law. Again, what you see in Yeshaya chapter 28. What does he say? Is it 28 or 29? He says the sure foundation. The sure foundation. Wait a minute now. See, just like in chapter 29, Yeshaya, you see what it says? I'm going to pick this up at verse 14. Okay? See what it says? Therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder. For the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from Yah, and their works are in the dark, and they say, who sees us and who knows us? Surely your turning of things upside down should be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he had no understanding? Is it not yet a very little while, and Lebanon shall be turned into a fruitful field, and the fruitful field shall be esteemed as a forest? And in that day shall the deaf hear the words of the book, and the eyes of the blind shall see out of obscurity and out of darkness. So, we read this before in the addendum, right? But again, when it says the words out of the book, that's the book of remembrance, right? But again, I'm trying to find this spot where it says the sure foundation, and I think it's 8 or 29 where he says about the sure foundation. Anybody see that out there? It's 28 or 29, I'm pretty sure.
28:16.
28:16, Yah found it. Yah bless. You see what it says? Therefore thus saith the Lord Yah, behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation of stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believes shall not make haste. Again, the sure foundation, the tried cornerstone, is the law. Again, Malachi 3:6, Yah doesn't change. It's the same law, the same commandments, precepts, statutes, orders, judgments, Same ones back then, the same ones today. It doesn't change. Okay? So back in 43, Yeshaya, right? When he says he's going to do a new thing, now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? He's already told you what the name of it was going to be. Right? Simple as that. It's just, it's predicated on Yah. That's why he says, shall you not know? Because it's going to be all about him. But again, only those who can recognize it are the ones who's reading and studying in this book. The ones who don't have the idol set up in their heart. That's why, again, in 53 Yeshaya at the top, what does he say? To whom is the arm of Yah revealed, right? He said, who has believed our report? Question mark. Right? Who has believed our report? Question mark. And to whom is the arm of Yah revealed? Another question mark. Right? See, because there's plenty of people that see the arm, hear the arm, but they can't recognize it because they got the idol set up in their heart. That's why, again, Yah says, you know, surely they shall gather together against you. Right? Back into 54, Yeshaya, right? But all who do shall fall for thy sake. No weapon formed going to be able to hurt. Okay? So, again, back here to this Yeshaya 9, verse 6, right? So, it says what? Government should be upon his shoulders. So, again, you know, you incorporate, because you send a letter to those who have power over you. Isn't that what Zerubbabel did? Right? Didn't Ezra make a petition to Artaxerxes, and it was granted him, and he was given the 501c3? You can read about that over in the book of Ezra. You know, they were not subject to duty, toll, custom, right? Isn't that right? So again, that's like a 501c3, isn't it? All right. So in order to get a 501c3 today, to be absolved from taxes, right? Different duties and customs, right? And tolls, right? See, we have to stand on this. We got to magnify this. See, we don't take it for granted and again say, well, this has nothing to do with today. See, that now you circumventing Yah. You understand what I mean? You're putting yourself before Yah, saying what he can't do. Huh? We've already talked about that today, haven't we? Right? You don't presume or assume. You just proceed putting Yah first. You understand? Because that's what, isn't that what Zerubbabel, when they got stopped? Isn't that how Haggai, didn't I just mention that in the last session? Isn't that how Haggai starts out? Yah said, the people say that the time that my house should be built has not yet come. But is it time for you to build your houses and go reside and close yourself in cedar, and my house laying there waste? Put it in a bag with holes in it. Because every time you turn around, Esau got another plot for you to take whatever your hard-earned dollars away. He's siphoning away now with this, this paper that he controls through inflationary measures. Isn't that right? The president that he just put in there that looks like us, that's not us, right? Obama, what did they just come up with? They called it Obamacare. And in another, another year? You understand? Something like that. They're gonna make it mandatory for everybody, right? You're gonna have to pay like $300 or so many hundreds of dollars. And if the older you are, the more you got to pay. I think it's like if you 60 or over, you got to pay like $600 and something a year for this Obamacare. You understand? I just read this the other day. All right. Okay, because I read it after we did. I think I kept the article for the next time. I might not have to read it now, right? Okay, but you know what I mean? You're going to have to pay for this Obamacare. Another way how to siphon off your money that you don't have, right? You make money to put it into a bag with holes in it. And they make these things mandatory, right? Because we're under their dominion. So we see the same thing, just like I just mentioned with Zerubbabel and them finally wrote a letter, right? About 14 years later, but they finally wrote it, right? Don't you see that in Ezra chapter 5? But it was under Darius the Great, Darius the Persian. They wrote the letter and sent it. And he received it. See, now they putting Yah to the test. Huh? Before they just assumed, well, it's not time. When they got stopped, like I said in the session that just ended, they hit a little bump. That show you how weak they were, right? How little faith they had in Yah, right? How little commitment they had. They didn't put Yah to the test, right? Just like our forefathers came out of Egypt. Yah can't give us water in the wilderness. He can't furnish flesh for us, a table in the wilderness. They gonna limit Yah. When he done just dropped all that drama on Egypt, that's how they come up out of there. But that's how weak they were, because they were inundated with idolatry, right? I mean, think about it before, how Moses was weak initially. I touched on it earlier today. He was weak. When y'all called him, he tried to beg out of it. Like I said, when you go into Exodus, it's not till the end of chapter 5 going into chapter 6 that Moses starts to get strong now. From that point on, he got stronger and stronger in Yah. He was real strong in Yah after chapter 5. Okay? So this is what Yah is doing with us now. He's refining us, those of us who give ourselves to him. He's preparing us, all of us who give ourselves to him with all our heart and soul. Preparing us predicated on what? The sure foundation. 28:16. Isn't that what it was? Huh? The law. All of us who predicated on that law. Now again, Deuteronomy 30 verse 2. All of us who returned with all our heart and soul to that law. Right? Okay, so now once you get, was sent in to be incorporated, the charter, and they recognized it. And it became incorporated. They sent it back. Like I said, you got to send some money to them. They always want some money. And then they sent it back incorporated. All right. When they send it back, then you got to send it off again to get it what? Here in Illinois, to get it recorded. You got to send them some more money. Okay? Yes, as a matter of fact, I took it downtown and took it up in the recorder office. Handed them some money. They took it. About 2 weeks later, they sent it back. It was recorded. Then had all of the 501c3. Now this is going to the big government, the feds, right? To be tax exempted, 501c3, right? Sent that off. And then so many months later, in 87, they sent that back. Totally tax exempted for in perpetuity. And like we said, and I think I mentioned on the last session, it got, I marked the wrong box in 05. It got stopped because I marked this wrong box. It had been that way for 3 years. We didn't even know it. When y'all brought it to our attention, then I had to go back and, and do it over again on the short form. Had to send them $100. Okay? And then, and a lot sooner than what the guy told me, they sent it back in perpetuity again. But this time, when we sent it in the second time, they got the flyer, because they wanted everything we had been doing. They got the flyer, they got the websites. So they were privy to all of what we talking about. Okay, but just like the sister said, isn't that kind of childish? They're going to interfere with it. Why wouldn't they just stop it? Right? You heard what I said, right? Because the powers that be not going to let them stop it. First of all, the power that be is Yah. You understand? This message got to get out. But then he works through other powers to keep his message up there. But then you got certain of them out here, they trying to interfere with it. You follow me? But Yah keeps it up because he wants his word to get out. And his word is going to get out. Why? So nobody has an excuse why they're not doing this. I don't care who it is. Nobody can say, well, I would have done it, but I didn't know anything about it. No, you didn't know anything about it because that's not what you was looking for. So therefore, you weren't led to it. If you was looking for Yah in any shape, form, or fashion, right? Peace, truth, righteousness, your salvation, or looking to see who the true and living creator is, he would have led you to his arm, his movement, Yah righteousness. Then you could have heard, then you would have been directed into reading this book of remembrance, Genesis through Malachi, King James Authorized Version. That's what we do. All you out there, you've been pursuing, listening to this movement, you didn't heard that. Right? So again, when he came back, now, like I told the brother last night, this has to be continually maintained. Right? Every so often, every year we gotta, we gotta redo it, in a sense, not redo it, but we gotta send in money to the state every year here in the state of Illinois to keep the incorporation up and running and recognized. Every so many years we got to substantiated to, with the federal government. Got to send them not send them some money, but we got to have, the lawyers. They the ones handle this, because they the ones notify us when it comes up time to be due. We just had to do one last year, and I think another one's coming before this year is out, because they were staggered. The patents on the logo and the name to get them, copyrighted. All right. And that's, like I told the brother last night, that's $350 to $400 to them patent lawyers every time when that comes up. Okay? So this is the government upon his shoulders, because this has to be overseen, this has to be dealt with. And, just like the taxes every year, we got to deal with that. Whether we take in, what it used to be, $25,000 or more, we had to fill our taxes. We got exonerated from that because we wasn't nowhere near $25,000 for years, right? And still aren't, right? But the point being is, now they took it off. You got to file, period. Whether you take in $2, you have to have them taxes filled out every year and send them something. Let them know what's going on. Okay? So this is the government upon his shoulders. This has to be dealt with. And again, I don't fool with it at all. After I mark that round box, I don't fool with it at all. You understand? We got to go to the people, and who's certified to do this thing. And then they got to be paid. So the government is upon his shoulders. What's next? Oh yeah, and let me just finish that out. You know what they say? You know what it says here? It says the people gonna call him wonderful. Well, yeah, it's people that's already calling us this. Wonderful, right? They're gonna call him counselor. It's people, like I said earlier, that call here all the time. I'm counseling with, right? Okay, and then some are gonna call him the everlasting Father. Well, they're confused because I'm not that. No human being is that. That's Yah. He's the everlasting Father. Some are going to be confused and going to say he's El Shaddai, the strong and almighty. I'm not that. That's Yah. But different people say that out of confusion, until their understanding, illumination is heightened, and then they'll stop saying that, right? But he is the Prince of Peace, because he's the governor, the seed of David that Yah has raised up. He's the governor, he's the anointed prince, right? And Yah's way is peace. It's what brings peace to this world. That's why you're going to have millions and millions of people going to gravitate to it, because they desire peace now. They're tired of all of this war. I just read something yesterday where they said many of these congressmen in Congress who don't want America to go in on Syria, don't want them to have anything to do with that, they said they are war weary. Many of these people in Congress here in the United States. That's why you saw Kerry yesterday. If you saw him, he up there before that committee, he was trying to do his best to convince these people we got to go in Syria. We got to do what we got to do against Syria, right? Because he's an Illuminati guy. He's Skull and Bone boy working for the Illuminati, his masters. Remember now, he's secondary chief. He's part of that secondary chief. He's Skull and Bone. He's an Edomite too. Like we said in the past, the Skull and Bone boys, they got an Edomite faction, they got a Gentile faction. Like W and his daddy, they part of the Gentile faction. Kerry, he's part of the Edomite faction of Skull and Bones. But he's Skull and Bones. Okay? Secondary chief, 41-9 Yeshai. Okay? What's next?
Going back to this Messiah thing, he knows what to
Okay, healing his wings. When they say there is not a Messiah, they mean no Messiah came to die for the sins of his people. Nobody can die for anybody else's sins. Read Ezekiel chapter 18, Deuteronomy chapter 24. They say the so-called New Testament has nothing to do with Scripture. Well, that's true. Scripture is Genesis through Malachi. The New Testament is the good spell, the Gospels. All right? And then you say, what should we study in its entirety? The Book of Remembrance. Scripture. Genesis through Malachi. King James Authorized Version. Okay, do I understand what you said about the meaning of the word Messiah being anointed? That's all it means, anointed. It doesn't mean anointed 1, anointed 2, anointed 3. It just means anointed, period. You go into the book of Numbers, chapter 22, and you'll see Yah anointed a jackass to talk to Balaam, the son of Beor. He was anointed because y'all brought the words out the jackass's mouth. All right. What's next? Malachi, how will the high priest from Zadok, Zechariah 3, must be that, know who he is himself? Will his name be Yahushua? Well, no, his name doesn't necessarily have to be Yahushua. Yahushua was the high priest back in the time of Zerubbabel. All right, that's when that time was. And that's who, it's in reference to in the sense of his line, because he was of the line of Zadok. But he's out there right now somewhere. He might have been in this room today. I don't know. We'll see. Y'all make it plain. He's gonna be with this movement when he goes back, and y'all make it plain who that is. Either when we leave here or either when we right after we get back. But he gonna make it plain. Okay. Peace and y'all. Okay. What's that? 1958. You missed one. Okay. Learning 1958. Peace and y'all bless you. Okay. Now that's just a salutation. Okay. Camouflage and what?
Yes. Are you on the seat today?
Absolutely. Yah righteousness.
Repeat the question.
Okay, the question 1, Yah, are you the seed of Dawid, the governor? Correct. What's next? There is an alert that says, okay, Yah is reading, but maybe I'm going too fast.
Comment on you.
Okay, Gabralia, guess that's the way you're pronouncing that. Yahuda comment on new moon observance and reckoning Shabbat according to moon cycles. Well, I don't deal with the moon cycles. I deal with dark and light, you know what I mean? From dark to dark, that's what I deal with, because I don't get into the moon thing. We know the time's been messed with. Just like they tell you it's 12 months in a year, but it's 13 for what we calculate. 28 days each, which amounts to 364 days. Okay? And, our forefathers, evidently, they worked out that 365th day. And then that other day, every 4 years, they had that worked out. But it's 13 months in a year. Just like it's 13 tribes of Israel. Okay? You see that in Ezekiel 48, because, Yahoseph, he got a double portion. Both his two sons was taken by Yisrael, or chapter 48, Genesis. So it's 13 tribes of Israel, not 12. 13 months in a year, not 12. So again, I don't fool with the moons yet. I know y'all make all that plain when he gives us the right time and everything when he gets us back. Okay, so I don't even deal with that. Okay, what's next? Okay, Garaya, I reckon Sabbath according to the new moon cycle just like the other appointed times. Okay, well, if that's what you do, that's what you do. I mean, I don't get into arguments about that, but if that's how you see it. Like I said, we don't have the right time. I deal when it gets dark, that's the beginning of the next 24 hours. Okay? Until it gets dark again. Not sundown, but dark. Okay? So that's how we do it here. What's next? Okay, Malachi, my wife doesn't want to serve y'all, but she doesn't stop me from doing so. Do I still need to leave her? You got to make that decision, but I'll just quote you this right quick. Amos 3:3. Two can't walk together unless they are agreed. And then again, I'll quote you this also, what was said to Jehoshaphat when he almost lost his life going to help Ahab on his way back. When he got near Jerusalem, okay, Yah brought the prophet out, and what did the prophet say to Jehoshaphat? How can you love those who hate Yah? And he was told since he had done that thing, he was going to have wars. Now, what's next? Gabriel, how does better Israel factor in? I guess that's into the Edomites being ran out of the land and destroyed. I don't know what you mean by beta Israel. Okay, so you gotta explain that to me. I don't know what that means.
Ethiopians?
Well, again, the Ethiopians or Cushites, they got nothing to do with the Edomites being run out of the land and judged. Nothing at all. I direct you again. I mentioned it earlier. The one chapter of Obadiah, right? And it tells you there, and like I said earlier, it should say, it did say the house of David for a fire, because that's the word. And Yah's making the house of David for a fire. That's this word, okay? And the house of Yahoseh for a flame, which consists of, Manasseh and Ephraim, and the house of Esau for stubble, okay? So the house of David for a fire, the house of Yahoseh for a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them. The Ethiopians or Cushites have nothing to do with that. Okay, what's next? Okay, Zechariah ben Israel. How would the high priest know he was the high priest? Yah is going to make that plain some kind of way, Zechariah. It's not explained in this book how that's going to happen, but we just know Yah says it, so it's going to happen. And I'm sure, I have no doubt, he's going to make that plain at the time when it's necessary, when he's ready. What's next? Look, that then.
Right here.
Okay, Malachi, concerning my prior question, what about when Yah says he hates putting away?
He's the one that's not season, but his wife that doesn't do it, and she'll be.
Oh, okay, you about your wife who's not about it? Well, again, Yah does hate putting away. Isn't that what Zerubbabel? Isn't that what they did? They put away, didn't do what they was cut loose to do. So you're faced with what you need to do. So you got to make the decision to do it. It should be plain, I would think. If you asking these questions, it seems like you understand what you should do. Now it's up to you to do it. Simple as that. If what you're telling me is just like that way, she's not about it and you are, then it should be plain what you got to do. Okay, Zechariah, Yeshaya 13:12. Well, I know that's talking about Babylon, daughter of Babylon, United States of America. Okay? And it's talking about the destruction, 13 and 14th chapter. Okay? Okay, and again, many men are going to die. It's not going to be, compared to the men that's in the world today, it's not going to be a whole lot of men left on this earth. Because most men, and I've talked about this in the past, most men are arrogant, prideful, haughty, and they're just not going to submit. I've talked about this in the past. I've heard Israelite men say, not that they know they Israelite at all, right? But I've heard different ones say there's no, they disdain praying. They mock that, getting on their knees praying. They mock it. And there's no way any Israelite or anybody else, I don't care whatever their nationality is, if they call themselves turning to Yah, that they're going to make it into the kingdom of Yah without praying to him, humbling themselves. Simple as that. Okay, and you saying how does it connect to 4:1? Well, again, that's about those 7 women again, right? Well, again, that's one of the reasons why it's going to be 7 women grabbing hold of one man, because it's not going to be that many men. Okay, I mean, like I said in the last session, and we spoke on it before, right? Yeshaya chapter 42. We're all hid in prison houses. You got millions of, at least 2 million or better if you're going to count in the Israelites who are of Latino, Hispanic descent, who don't know that they're, Israelites, who are now counted in with the so-called blacks, African Americans being, locked up in the prison house. Well, Michelle Obama, she doesn't even basically realize that, because she's basically talking about us in the new Jim Crow, from what I understand, right?
Michelle Alexander, not Obama.
Did I say? I thought I said Michelle Alexander.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If I said Michelle Obama, I meant Michelle Alexander. I'm sure I said that. But anyway, You know, it's many of us, and that's just here in America, that's locked up in these prison houses. And again, you know, once you get locked up in that prison house, you see what it says. You just mentioned chapter 13, Yeshua. Just go over there to chapter 14, Yeshua, because it's talking about the same thing. 13 about the destruction of the daughter of Babylon and this nuclear war that's coming. It's not that far off, okay? You know, we talking maybe in the next, it could be in the next 10, 12 years. You follow what I'm saying? This nuclear war. You know, I wouldn't say no more than 15 tops. And I don't even think it's that far off, okay? Like I said, about 10 to 12 years, this nuclear war can be happening. And you just read chapter 14, Yeshua. You see what it says there, right? You see what it says in verse 17, chapter 14? Let me go back to verse 16. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble? See, that's that Lucifer, son of the morning. He's referred to as a man, right? Because that's what he is. Like I said earlier, you know, the house of Rothschild, who's today they call, you know, Jacob the Rothschild, the king of Israel. So he's this Lucifer, son of the morning, at least now, unless he dies and another Rothschild takes his place before this actually happens, right? But it says, that did shake kingdom, that made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners. Because again, when this nuclear war comes, you understand, you know, they're not going to open up the prison houses here in America. Okay? Now, and again, this Illuminati guy, he might not necessarily get killed when this happens, but then he might. You know what I mean? But he's going to get killed. These Amalekites are going to die. There's no doubt about that. See, you know, like I say, you know, you got other Illuminati guys. You know, like I said, they got territories. And they just, you know, one's over there, or families over there running Russia. You got another one running China. You know, you got this one that runs this one through the Skull and Bone Boys. He's based over there in Britain, possibly in Germany is where this real base is. Okay? You might have one or two more. You follow me, running other parts of the world. All right? And so this one might get killed when again, that's what this is implying, when, you understand, when America, daughter of Babylon, gets destroyed. Okay? And it doesn't say daughter here, it just says Babylon, but that's what it's talking about. This daughter of Babylon is the United States of America. And you see what it says, he's not going to open the door to the prison house. So if you get locked up and you spending any significant time in jail, you follow what I'm saying? And definitely if you're in jail when this happens, they're not opening no doors and let you out. That's where you're going to die. Okay? So it's a lot of men not going to make it. Because the average man, and definitely, you know, average man, period, but definitely these Israelite men, stiff-necked, stubborn, recalcitrant, and swollen, prideful, egotistical. Okay? What does he say regarding the arm of Yah, returning to the land with Yah righteous movement, since you are the seed of David, I'm a descendant of the Y, and this is my office in the movement. Would you say that's correct? Again, if you say you are the descendant of the Y, who am I to say you're not? We're going to find out. I know who I am because of what Yah is doing through me at this time. There's different brothers who have called and said they just know they are the tribe of the Y. Okay, well, we'll see. Simple as that. You know, we won't know just, you understand, who's who till we get back for sure. You know, because like it says in Ezekiel chapter 20, 32 through 38, you know, different ones going to come out with this movement and they're not going to make it to the land. So we really won't know just who's part of this until we actually get back in the land. Okay? And then, like I said, it could very well be, it will be then that this seed, Yah will make it plain who this seed of Zadok is and who the Lewites are. Okay? But we know they're going to be part of this movement because this movement goes back represented, you know, in all three departments. What if you find out, and this is from one Yah, what if you find out that you are not the governor? Will you be cursed by Yah? Well,
definitely, if I'm not the governor at this point, I'm already cursed. Okay? It's just that simple. But it's no doubt in my mind. And again, like I said a little while ago, you just read Yeshaya chapter 53. The first, what does it say? Who has believed our report? And there's many people don't believe what's coming out of here, right? And to whom is the arm of Yah revealed? Okay? And unless one is knowledgeable in this book, and I mean illuminated enough to where they can actually discern. And again, you see what it says in chapter 50? What was that? One Yah that asked that? I'm going to read it to you. Okay? Chapter 50 Yeshaya. It's a whole lot in Yeshaya, isn't it? Okay? Chapter 50 Yeshaya. And I've spoken on this in the past. Let's see. Let me find it now. Hold on. I'm in the wrong chapter. That's why I can see. Okay, here it goes. I'm going to pick this up. I'll just pick it from the top. Thus saith Yah, where is the bill of your mother's divorcement, whom I have put away? Or which of my creditors is it to whom I have sold you? Behold, for your iniquities have you sold yourselves, and for your transgressions is your mother put away. See that? That's our forefathers, right? Wherefore, when I came, was there no man? When I called, was there none to answer? Is my hand shortened at all that it cannot redeem? Or have I no power to deliver? Behold, at my rebuke, I dry up the sea. I make the rivers a wilderness. Their fish stinks, because there is no water, and dies for thirst. I clothe the heavens with blackness, and I make sackcloth their covering. The Lord Yah hath given me. Now this is the servant talking. This is the seed of David talking. Verse 4. The Lord Yah hath given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him that is weary. He wakeneth morning by morning, he wakeneth mine ear to hear as the learned. That's why he's a counselor. Right? He'll be looked upon as and dealt with like a counselor, right? The Lord Yah hath opened my ear, and I was not rebellious, neither turned away back. I gave my back to the smiters, and my cheeks to them that plucked off the hair. You know, the ones who, just like what you just intimated, you know, what was that one Yah? How do I know if I'm the governor or will I be? Because it's different ones, you know, who's out there right now throwing stones, been throwing stones at this, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I told you, my mother back in 74, 5, you know, 6, you know, she used to tell me, you talking crazy, right? Okay, but like I told you, she been about Yah now over 20 years. Okay, changed her name back in, and I'm talking about legally under these people, changed her name, you understand, to Bithia Amba Yisrael. In 1995, okay? She down there right now doing the Sabbath. She's 90 years old, okay? And my mother, she has read the book. She reads the book. She studies the book. Like I told you, you want to catch a little drama, meet my mother and start talking about some JC. See what she tell you, all right? Okay? I mean, you got to bring it to her. You just can't be talking in general. If you bring it to her, she has something to tell you, okay? All right, but I'm back here in chapter 50, Yeshaya, right? I just pick it back up at verse 6. I gave my back to the smiters and my cheeks to them that plucked off the hair. I hid not my face from shame and spitting. For the Lord Yah will help me, therefore shall I not be confounded. Therefore have I set my face like a flint, and I know that I shall not be ashamed. Okay? He is near that justifies me. Who will contend with me? Let us stand together. Who is mine adversary? Let him come near to me. Behold, the Lord Yah will help me. Who is he that shall condemn me? Lo, they shall all wax old as a garment. The moth shall eat them up. Who is among you? And I read all that to get to this specifically. Verse 10. Who is among you that fears Yah, that obeys the voice of it, and walks in darkness and has no light? Let him trust in the name of Yah, he who creates, right? And stay upon his strong one. So again, it's implying right here that you can't obey the voice of the servant if you cannot recognize the servant. Is that not right? One is going to have to be able to recognize the servant in order to obey the voice of the servant. Right? But the whole time the people are supposed to be what? They're not trusting the servant, right? They're trusting
in Yah, in the name of Yah, he who creates, and stand upon their strong. Behold, all ye that kindle a fire, that compass yourself about with sparks, walk in the light of your fire and in the sparks that you have kindled. This shall ye have of my hand, you shall lie down in sorrow. That's Yah talking. Okay? So you got to be able to discern who the servant is. And again, just think about it. When Yah says in chapter 60, Yeshaya, arise and shine, for the glory of Yah is risen upon thee, right? For the earth is in darkness, and the people of the earth in gross darkness. But the Gentiles shall come to thy light. That's saying what? They're going to have to be able to discern the servant of Yah in order to come to the light of Yah. Is that not right? Doesn't it say, and kings shall come to the brightness of thy rising? So, like I said in this past session, the kings, they're not going to make a mistake. These Gentiles, they're not going to make a mistake. That's why I know they're listening. That's why I know they watching. Okay? They see how dark it is. They see, how their situation is tenuous, how their line is tenuous. They don't want their children to be exterminated off this earth. They want to be able to keep a line here forever. Okay? See, because these kings and these monarchies, they already know that the Christianity and Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism, they already know all that's a bunch of garbage. They know about Yah. Okay? These are the elite we talking about. These are not fools, all right? Think about it now. Yah said he was going to take all the wisdom and understanding out of the Mount of Esau, out of the Edomites. Why is he doing that? Because the Edomites is out here claiming to be what? Israel. They're the robbers of our people, right? Did he say that the kings and the queens is going to be fools? You're not going to see that in this book. You understand? You're not going to see that anywhere prophetically where Yah says that the kings and the queens and the princes is going to be fools. All right? It's just the opposite. They're not fools. See? They haven't been deceived. They understand. What's next?
Abijah.
Okay, Abijah, my extended family has invited me to their birthday party. Should I go or not? Again, read the book of Job. And right at the beginning, in the first chapter, what did Yah do to Job's sons and daughters when they was, because each one recognized their day, the house fell in on them. So if you go, the house might, the house might fall in on you, okay? I don't go to, I don't fool with no birthdays. I mean, but I have gone to people who've had birthdays, but, generally when I do that, and this is reality, I get a little bleed later, but I don't go for the birthday. We are seen so little. Yada and myself, we are seen so little by people who know us. It's times when we've gone through, they didn't even, wasn't even brought to us that it was a birthday party. They just said they was giving a party or something and invited us. And we went and found out later it was a birthday thing. But, we don't eat anyway. We ain't singing happy birthday. We ain't bring no present. So, again, we've been on the scene at some of those things, but we just sit back and observe. But we don't participate in that regard. But, I don't make it a practice of going to any birthdays knowingly. Not at this point in time. Okay? But like I said, when I have done it, I got a bleed in on me later. Y'all let a little something come in on me and made that plain to me. And again, I don't like pain. Just don't want to make the wrong move. Me either, brother. I don't like pain.
Babies Malachi about putting his wife away. He don't know.
Okay, but again, if you got babies Malachi, you don't know about putting your wife away. That's what you do it. That's one of the reasons you do it for. It's for those children. Okay, simple as that. Right? You just look at what Abijah put up there. Okay, that's what you do it for, because you want to make it plain to them children. You ain't about
what your wife is about, what their mother is about. And again, it's no animosity, it's no acrimony. You know, you ain't hating her. You hate what she in, but you more so than hate it, you understand it. And again, it shouldn't be any animosity. You know, hey, you made your decision, I'm making mine. And again, it gets to the point sometimes when people have to part. Simple as that. In order for at least one to live. Who knows? If you part now, maybe she'll get some sense at some point and she'll turn to Yah. And she'll live too. Okay? But again, you know what's going to happen if you stay with her and she's not about Yah. Just go into this book and read about different ones who were supposed to be about Yah and their mate was not. Look at Solomon. There you go. You ain't got to go no further really than Solomon. He was about Yah, but he was hooked up with these women that weren't about Yah. What happened to him? Huh? What happened? What does he say in his song? Every, third or fourth line? I'm sick of love. I'm sick of love. I'm sick of love. Right? What does it say in the proverb? Right? Beauty is what? Vain and favor is deceitful. The woman that fears Yah, she's the one to be desired. Again, look at Yaakov, Israel, right? He wanted Raquel, like I said, well, I didn't really say it this time, but he wanted Raquel because she was pretty, superficially. That's why he desired her, right? Leah had the soft eyes. She wasn't as pretty as her sister. But at first he was hating Leah because he had been tricked into having intercourse with her. He didn't know it was her. He thought it was Raquel, right? But after he ejaculated in her and he knew the law of Yah, he knew this is his wife because he done consummated it, right? But what happened over a period of time? He ended up caring more for Leah. He cared about her. Why? Because Leah was in his corner. She was everything a man wants in a wife. She studied her man and everything that he needed, everything that he needed to function to his highest capacity. She did all she could to supply that, whatever it was, in righteousness. See? And in the end, what happened? Huh? When Yaakov, Israel, was getting ready to die down there in Egypt, what did he tell Yahweh? Take me back and bury me next to Leah. He didn't say take me back and bury me next to, what's next?
That's not how you respond. You're replying to you being the governor and you saying remember 23.
Okay. What's next?
Going back and forth.
Okay, we're reading, trying to get to the next question.
Expand on the second gathering.
Okay, Zechariah, expand on the second gathering. Most of my family is still into idolatry, brothers, sisters, etc. I can't get through to them about Yah now that, you know, because they got idols set up in their heart, right? Ezekiel 14, right? How would they make the second gathering? They're going to have to turn to Yah just like you turn to Yah and obey Him with all their heart. But at the same time, you know what it says about the second gathering. They're coming out of affliction, not out of understanding. And we see that, don't we? In Yeshaya chapter 2 and Micah chapter 4. They're not coming out of understanding. They're coming out of affliction. So, you know, quite naturally, if you end up being everything that, you know, you're supposed to be, and you leave out of here with this Jerusalem movement and get back with it, quite naturally, you know, they're going to know about that, I'm sure. You know, even if you just write them, you understand, and tell them, hey, when you get your act together, you know, hopefully you'll make it over here. I'm over here, you understand, and I'll be waiting on any of y'all that make it. You know what I'm saying? And then that's going to be, you know, different ones are going to see that and see. Again, when the Jerusalem movement gets back, we see everything is being intensified right now, more and more every day, right?
all the problems in the world, because Yah is bringing forth his judgment to make it rest for a light of the people. All right. Well, you see what it says there in Malachi chapter 3 at the top? When the temple is built and completed, when it's built and them sacrifices is put on, Yah's going to up the intensity even that much more. Right? Because he's going to be a swift witness against the idolaters, the false swearers, the ones who oppress the hireling in their wages, right? The fatherless and the widow. He's going to be a swift witness, right? So he's going to up the intensity even that much more. So this again, after the temple's built and the sacrifices put on, it's not going to be that long. You understand what I'm saying? Well, you're going to get that second gathering, maybe within the next year after that. See, because it's going to be progressively getting worse. It's getting worse now. When the Jerusalem movement leaves here, it's going to be progressively getting worse still. So how much more once the temple is completed and sacrifice is put on? See, this is when, the people then, they're going to be, man, you see what they say in Jeremiah chapter 50, right? Because that's the second gathering at the top of 50. What does it say? It says, verse 4, I'm picking up at verse 4. In those days and in that time, saith Yah, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Yahudah together, going and weeping. They shall go and seek Yah their strong, and they shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come and let us join ourselves to Yah in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. Right? See, because again, they're gonna know that they gotta pray, and they're gonna be saying, which way is Jerusalem? Because I got to pray. See, because it's steadily getting worse every day. I just touched on that. That's why we read these newspaper articles. Huh? Okay? And this is not just here in the door of Babylon. It's all over the world. You got economic collapse. You got environmental collapse. You got floods. You got earthquakes. Huh? You got nuclear catastrophes like Fukushima. Like they had over there. This is where it sounds. It's worse than what they had over there in Russia some years ago. Right? I mean, this thing is horrible, and it's getting worse. And with the crumbling of America like we see, who's to say that one of these nuclear catastrophes won't happen here in America? I mean, sinkholes, they fracking everywhere, right? Them sinkholes pop up, because when you put out that hard oil, solidified and liquefied, and pull it out, that's going to leave a chasm, is it not? Huh? Which again has to be filled. So, that's what's creating these sinkholes and whatnot. I'm telling you, it's horrible. And Illuminati Edomite, he doesn't care because he knows America's in the process of being destroyed. That's why he's not trying to keep it built up. And you using inferior metals, inferior building materials, just like I just said in the last session about the Golden Gate Bridge. Some of you out there probably heard about it. Huh? Just like the bridge in Minnesota a few years ago that collapsed. Huh? Just like these train overpasses, these overpasses collapsing. We talked about that. I'm telling you, they just letting it go. You follow me? They just putting on an act. They're putting on a show to try to keep the people's minds pegged down here in America. That's why you got different people like, well, we ought to buy some land here and plant some food. How you gonna buy some land here when they got GMOs flipping fields into GMOs? Explain that to me. You got people, different ones of us talking about, well, I'm gonna buy me a building. Buy your building for what? Who you gonna put in? Who gonna pay the rent? People losing jobs left and right. We got a building right here south of us across the street. It's half empty. And it's a dump. I mean, they got the cheapest rents around here, and it's half empty. They can't even afford to go up in there. That's why I've said in the past, buying something up in here is like buying a stateroom on the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. I mean, how much sense does that make? But you got a lot of people, running around like chickens with their head cut off, thinking that this is going to come back, thinking that what it says in Jeremiah 51, we would have healed Babylon. So it's what? Implying that it's a period that
Plenty of people around here thinking Babylon gonna come back, thinking America's gonna come back. It's gonna be healed. And then what does it say? But she cannot be healed, for her judgment reaches unto the sky. Let every man flee back into his own country. And this has already begun. They just don't talk about it a lot. You got a lot of people leaving up out of it, the people with money. Like I said, just think about if you saw the movie The Titanic with DiCaprio, and what's her name? Winslet, or whatever her name was, right? Just think about that movie, because they showed you the real deal in that movie, in that Titanic by Cameron, right? When the Titanic hit the iceberg, did you see the captain? Did he said, go down there to them bottom decks and tell them poor folks to put on life preservers? Did they do that? No, they went and locked the gates on them. They didn't tell them nothing. All right? Not a thing. But they went and started knocking on them doors of them people with that big money, with them staterooms, saying, okay, put your life jacket on, and in a minute we're going to move you to the lifeboats, okay? Now that's the real deal. And when they put them people, them richies, in them lifeboats, what did the architect who was on the Titanic go and tell the people who was running that situation? Did he say? He said, hey man, he said these lifeboats hold, I think he said they hold like 75 people. He said in some of these boats, you ain't got but 40 or 50 people, man. You got to fill these lifeboats up. See? And you know why that was, right? Because them rich folks didn't want them poor folks in the lifeboat with them. Huh? Think about it, man. See, this ain't no joke. This is real stuff. This is why you see a lot of these. Just watch Max Kaiser sometime on RT. Huh? Watch Peter Schiff. Go on the internet and pull up, the Peter Schiff and Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert. Pull up Gerald Celente. Huh? David Morgan, Maloney of GoldSilver.com. Huh? Reggie Middleton of BoomBuzz.com. Listen to some of these people and what they saying on this internet about, and about this economic situation, not only here in America, but in the world. What's next? What's next? Okay, in the holy city, this is Gabriel, I guess that's how you say it. In the holy city, when Yah returns his arm to Jerusalem, do the Levites guard clean? Do the Levites guard clean, keep and live in the holy city? Yeah, they gonna clean. Yeah, I mean, the Levites keep the temple. That's who keeps the temple. See, they gonna be on temple grounds. You're gonna have some Levites designated. They do the work outside the temple. You have some Levites designated. They do the work inside the temple. You follow me? See, because look, you got grounds designated. Just go to Ezekiel, all right, and read from chapter 40 on through 47, and it's talking about how this temple, this third and last temple, is going to be, and it talks about everything inside per se and around it. You follow me? And it's not really, it's not really any change from where it was from when the first temple was built. Okay? You got a certain amount of land designated for the temple, around the temple for the Levites. Okay? And the high priest and their families. Okay? And you got a certain part of that that's designated for what? For the offerings. See, because when people bring the offerings ain't dead. The offerings is living. You understand? I mean, them animals. Now, some of it's going to be gold or silver or copper or diamonds or emeralds. You understand? Some offerings is wheat or corn or what have you, wine. You understand what I mean? Different things like that, right? But some of these offerings is what? It's going to be beeves and goats and lambs. Some is going to be clean fowl. Okay, well, they all don't go up on the altar the same day or the next day or the next day. So it's got to be pens and places where this stuff's going to be put. And who you think deals with that? It's the Levites, and they probably going to have servants, you understand, who's going to be helping them do that thing. You understand what I'm saying? So this is all set up. Everybody's got something to do. Everybody's designated to do certain things. And the Levites is no different. And they lands is going to be, they housing and all that's going to be on temple ground. Because it could very well be that it'll be like it was in the past when you'll have a Levite in all the towns and all the cities. But at the same time, it might not have to be that way. Why? Because again, what does Yah say? What's the new covenant? 31:31 Yeremiah. This time, everybody's got to know the law, the book. Everybody got to read this time. Everybody. And nobody has any excuse again. 46:13 Yeshai, 51:5 Yeshai. Yah's righteousness is near. It's near everybody. Everybody got access to this book. In over 2,000 languages, whatever language you speak, the book is translated into this language. Huh? So again, you got people in different places of the world right now. They listen to this. Okay, Yeshai tells me they got to link up all the way over into Russia. We already saw 3 years ago they linking up over in Pakistan. They linking up down in Brazil. Huh? It's going all over the world because Yah is bringing them to it. If they looking for him, what's next? Okay, Malachi, do you think Ben-Ami really saw Gabriel? No, he ain't seen no Gabriel. That's just him with his nonsense. What's next? Zechariah ben Yeremiah 3:14. You know, and I cite you this, Malachi, about what you asked about Ben-Ami. What does it say again in 48? You know, we just dealt with that earlier, right? In the session, right? 48 Yeshai, right? What does it say in the second verse? Is that the second verse? Not in truth nor in righteousness. So just chalk that Gabriel up to that.
He would have been talking about JC if he saw.
Yeah, like Yada just said. She said you probably heard her. He wouldn't have been talking about no JC if Gabriel had to come to him, would he? You know, Gabriel ain't talking about no JC, no idolatry. Okay, turn O backsliding children, saith Yah, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion. Yeah, well, again, you might be the one, Zechariah, right? And maybe another one of your family might come later on down the line. That'll be two, you and that one. What's next? Gabriel, in our past history in Israel, did David live in the holy city with his mighty men? Comment, please. Well, again, yeah, more than likely, yeah, because you know that's where he dwelled, and his mighty men was probably there too. You understand what I mean? Or right outside. You understand what I mean? Maybe not necessarily in Jerusalem, but might have been right there, because you know Yahuda's inheritance is right there next to Jerusalem. And then right on the other side of Jerusalem is the inheritance of Ephraim. That's what it's talking about in Ezekiel 16 chapter. Huh? That sister that dwelleth at thy right hand, that's Yahudah, right? Talking about Jerusalem. And that sister that dwelleth at thy left, that's Ephraim. Okay? So they might have been not in the holy city, but right there in the inheritance, not right outside the holy city. Okay? That's it? Okay, so it looks like a session for today, and it's always a blessing to be part of this, and hopefully all of you out there got illumination, more illumination today. We'll get more, you know, tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day and so on, you know, because it's about growth. And hopefully, you know, possibly Yah will give the understanding of this Yeshai chapter 21 and somewhere in the near future, so we'll know exactly what that's saying. I got to go back over that some more, you know, because again, you know, like I just told you, I just revealed that all the understanding that Daniel chapter 10, that part about, you know, Cyrus there, where you just really allowed me to understand that. And again, Yah is doing it the way he's doing it to show that it's him. Okay, it's him all the time. And you know, we got to be totally connected, submissive, committed, in obedience, and then he illuminates us more and more and more. Okay, so again, and let me just say this at the end, you know, today, as I said at the beginning, don't take for granted, these recordings and what you see on the internet, because it's a lot of work that has gone into this. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about what Yeshaya does, what Yedida does, and what Yada does. Okay, and this, it's again, they are to be commended for their commitment and their steadfastness in what they do in bringing these recordings to all of you who hear them. And I'll still say again, Yah bless Mark Sims for all what he did, okay? Because I never took that for granted either. I knew it was Yah, but he was working through Mark, and hopefully at some point Mark will come to illumination and will come to Yah and be able to bring his family to Yah. You see what I'm saying? Because you understand, I don't have anything but love for Mark Sims, and I want all you to know that. All right, because Mark is fine with me. I just hope at some point he awakens and comes to Yah, and like I said, him and his family can get saved out of this horrific affliction that we're in, okay, that the world is in. For Yah righteousness, Jerusalem and the Holy See, Yah bless.